Close your eyes and imagine yourself floating down a gentle river, rain pattering softly on the surface of the water, droplets drumming a soothing rhythm on the leaves that shade your journey. The world slows down as your mind drifts toward a story about a boy who would grow into one of football's most graceful icons. This story is not just about goals, trophies, and famous matches. It is a meditation on a life lived between cultures, a life shaped by family, perseverance, joy, and heartbreak. It is the tale of Zinedine Zidane, whose journey from the rough streets of Marseille to the biggest stages of football unfolds like a dream we will explore together, weaving through each chapter and memory as if we were leafing through an old cherished photo album on a rainy afternoon. Our journey begins in the port city of Marseille, at the time when the Mediterranean sun baked the stucco walls of the Castellane housing estate and the smell of salt and spices drifted up from the old harbour. Zinedine Zidane was born there on June the 23rd, 1972, the fifth child of immigrants from Kabylie, a mountainous region of Algeria. His parents, Smail and Malika, had crossed the sea in the 1950s in search of work and a better life, leaving behind their village but carrying with them the warmth of their culture and the values of family and solidarity. They settled in La Castellane, a concrete labyrinth that many Parisians and tourists would never visit, but for the Zidanes it became a place of community and survival. Life was not easy in those tower blocks. Smail worked nights as a warehouse watchman and sometimes as a doorman, while Malika raised the children and taught them to be proud of their heritage. Little Zinedine grew up with his brothers and sisters in a small apartment overlooking a courtyard. Every morning he would hear the clatter of footsteps echoing down the stairwells and the calls of neighbours greeting each other in Arabic and French. In the evening, the smell of couscous and tagine wafted through the corridors. Smail would tell stories of Kabylie, of olive trees and mountain views, of dignity and resilience. These stories sank into the boy's imagination, giving him a sense of roots that extended far beyond the grey concrete around him. He loved listening to his mother's voice, the melodies of her prayers and the lullabies she sang in Berber. Though money was scarce and the neighborhood's reputation was rough, there was love and warmth within the walls of their home. Outside, the streets were his playground. The place Tartane, an open square in La Castellane, was where he first learned to master football. The ground was not a manicured field, but an uneven expanse of asphalt. The goalposts were lines drawn on a wall or sweaters piled on the ground. Neighbours would gather to watch the boys play, cheering at improvised moves and teasing when someone missed the ball. In those endless games, Zinedine discovered the joy of moving with the ball at his feet. His older brothers introduced him to the legends of their time. He admired Jean-Pierre Papin of Olympique Marseille and, perhaps even more, the Uruguayan Maestro Enzo Francescoli of River Plate. The way Francescoli glided across the pitch, balancing beauty and efficiency, captured the imagination of the young boy. He would later name his first son Enzo in tribute. He could spend hours on that square, losing himself in the rhythm of dribbling, the sound of the ball echoing off the walls, and the laughter of friends. Rain rarely stopped them, if anything. The sheen of water on the asphalt made the ball slide in unpredictable ways, turning every match into a new adventure. After school, he would drop his bag in the apartment and rush outside. During the long summer evenings, he would continue playing until the sky turned the color of ripe apricots and street lamps flickered on. His father sometimes watched from the window, half worried about the roughness of the neighborhood, half proud of his son's growing talent. At the age of 5, Zinedine joined the local club La Castellane, then moved to Esso Septimes-les-Vallons, where he honed his skills under the watchful eyes of coaches who saw in him a rare combination of balance, strength, and vision. By the time he was 10, he possessed a player's license and was traveling to matches around the region, learning to adapt to different pitches and opponents. He was tall for his age, with a natural elegance that made his runs look like gliding. His family continued to support him, driving him to training sessions and cheering from the sidelines, even when they could not always afford new boots. Those early years were filled with a mixture of street football creativity and structured training. He learned to improvise, to dance with the ball, and also to listen, to work within a team. The turning point came when he attended a training camp at the Centre Régional d'Éducation Physique et Sportive, CREPS, in Aix-en-Provence. Scouts from professional clubs often visited these camps, and one in particular, Jean Varraud from AS Cannes, spotted the 14-year-old Zidane and was mesmerized by his control and vision. Varraud invited him to Cannes for a trial, but for the boy and his family, this meant leaving home and the comfort of La Castellane. It was a difficult decision. They knew that life in professional football could be unforgiving, but they also recognized that this was a chance to escape the cycle of poverty. Zinedine arrived in Cannes in 1986, leaving behind friends and family but carrying their hopes with him. He lived at a training center far from home, but he found a second family among the coaches, players and staff who taught him not just how to pass and shoot, but how to live independently. In Cannes, he matured quickly. The city's beauty, its palm-lined Croisette, golden beaches, and film festival glamour contrasted sharply with his previous environment. On weekends, he would wander through markets, listening to vendors calling out in French and Italian, absorbing the rhythms of a new place. On the training pitch, he developed his technique under the guidance of club president Alain Pedretti and coach Guy Lecombe. They saw him not as a raw talent to be exploited, but as a young man to be nurtured. He was given time to grow into his body, to understand the tactical nuances of midfield play. By 17, he made his professional debut in Ligue 1, facing experienced defenders and learning to absorb pressure without losing his calm. His first goal came in February 1991 against Nantes, a moment he had dreamed of since playing on the asphalt square. After the match, club president Pedretti gave him a car as a reward, a small red Renault that represented freedom and independence. Zidane cherished that gesture because it marked not just a personal achievement, but a milestone for his family, proof that his father's sacrifices and his mother's encouragement were bearing fruit. He sent part of his wages back to his parents and remained humble, visiting La Castellane whenever he could. Success did not change his character, instead it deepened his commitment to his roots. Cannes qualified for the UEFA Cup in the early 1990s, exposing the young midfielder to European competition. He relished playing against teams from across the continent, listening to national anthems ring out in the crisp evening air. He studied opponents meticulously, noticing how experienced midfielders like Italy's Roberto Donadoni or Germany's Matthias read the game. At night he lay in his modest apartment, the sound of rain on the windows reminding him of home, and he visualized moves and passes, turning over ideas in his head like a chess player considering strategies. Each match taught him to adapt, to speed up when opponents pressed, to slow down when his team needed control. After 4 years in Cannes, an opportunity came to join Cannes and Bordeaux, a historic club with passionate supporters and a rich tradition. The transfer in 1992 marked another step in his ascent. Bordeaux, with its vineyards and grand architecture along the Garonne River, offered a different environment. The city's slower rhythms, the taste of local cuisine, and the camaraderie among teammates like Christophe Dugarry and Bixente Lizarazu enriched his experience. The trio would become known as the Bordeaux Boys, and their understanding on the pitch was almost telepathic. Dugarry, with his physical presence, opened spaces for Zidane, Lizarazu, an attacking fullback, provided width and overlaps, while Zidane orchestrated from the center. These were years of growth and discovery. Under coach Roland Courbis and later Gernot Rohr, Bordeaux played an attractive style of football, emphasizing ball possession and collective movement. Zidane thrived as the playmaker. He scored spectacular long-range goals, delivered inch-perfect through balls, and guided his team to the 1995 Coupe de la Ligue final. In the 1995-96 season, Bordeaux embarked on an unforgettable run in the UEFA Cup. They eliminated Milan, then the defending European champions, in a dramatic quarter-final second leg at Parc Lescure. The night was cold and damp, and the stadium lights reflected off puddles on the track. Zidane's passing tore through Milan's defence, and the home crowd, their breath visible in the cold air, roared in unison. Though Bordeaux lost the final to Bayern Munich, the campaign showcased Zidane's elegance to a wider audience. Off the pitch, he grew into adulthood. He found comfort in books and music, listening to Algerian Rai and French pop, reading novels by Albert Camus, and poetry by Jacques Prévert. He learned to cook simple meals, experimenting with spices his mother would use. When he felt lonely, he would call home and hear his parents' voices, his mother reminding him to stay grounded. He visited local vineyards with teammates, learning about winemaking and appreciating the patience it took to cultivate grapes. These experiences expanded his perspective beyond football. He realized that success in life, like in wine, required time, care, and respect for tradition. One of the most significant personal experiences during his time at Bordeaux was meeting Veronique Fernandez, a young dancer from Aveyron, studying at the Rosella Hightower Dance School in Cannes. They had first crossed paths when he was 17 and she was 18, and their connection blossomed quietly. When he moved to Bordeaux, their long-distance relationship strengthened through letters and phone calls. Veronique visited him, bringing with her the elegance and discipline of dance. She understood the rigors of training and the sacrifices required to pursue a dream. Together they strolled along the Garonne, exploring cafes and markets, sharing meals where they talked about their origins and their aspirations. Her Spanish heritage and his Algerian roots blended in their conversations. They would laugh about cultural differences and celebrate similarities. Their bond offered him stability and affection, a refuge from the pressures of professional sport. By 1996, the football world had taken notice. Italian Juventus, led by coach Marcello Lippi, sought to rebuild their midfield after winning the Champions League in 1996. They saw in Zidane a player capable of linking defense and attack with intelligence and artistry. Juventus offered him a chance to play in Serie A, then considered the toughest league in the world. Accepting meant leaving France and starting over in a new language and culture. Veronique encouraged him, reminding him that growth often comes from stepping into unfamiliar places. He was hesitant at first, not wanting to abandon the comfort of Bordeaux, but he recognized that at 24 he needed to challenge himself further. Turin greeted him with foggy mornings, industrial landscapes, and passionate fans known as the Tifosi. The Juventus training ground at Vinovo was a place of discipline. Lippi's drills focused on defensive organization, pressing, and tactical flexibility. To adapt, Zidane worked tirelessly. He learned Italian by listening to teammates like Alessandro Del Piero, Antonio Conte, and Didier Deschamps speak in the locker room. His early months were challenging. Italian defenders pressed relentlessly, and newspapers questioned whether he could handle the physicality. There were nights when he lay awake, rain tapping on the window, wondering if he had made the right decision. Gradually, he found his rhythm. In Del Piero, he discovered a creative partner with whom he could exchange quick touches and intuitive movements. In Conte and Deschamps, he found midfielders willing to do the dirty work to free him to orchestrate. Juventus's black and white stripes became his armor. He won 2 Serie A titles in 1996-97 and 1997-98, as well as the Intercontinental Cup and the UEFA Super Cup. In the 1997 Champions League final against Borussia Dortmund, though Juventus lost, Zidane's elegance shone. His ability to control the ball under pressure, to spin away from markers using the roulette he had perfected on the asphalt of La Castellane, left commentators searching for superlatives. In Europe, he gained renown. He won the Ballon d'Or in 1998 after guiding Juventus to domestic successes and France to their first World Cup triumph. He also claimed the FIFA World Player of the Year award in 1998 and again in 2000 and 2003, recognition not only of his technical prowess but of his ability to inspire teammates. Off the pitch in Turin, he immersed himself in Italian culture. He visited the Mole Antonelliana, ate fresh pasta in small trattorias, and learned to appreciate Italian cinema. He and Veronique married in 1994 at Bordeaux's town hall, and by the time they settled in Italy, they were starting a family. Their first son, Enzo, was born in 1995, named after his childhood idol. Luca followed in 1998, Theo in 2002, and Elias in 2005. Parenthood grounded him further. He found solace in reading bedtime stories to his sons, in changing diapers, and in watching them learn to walk and play. The laughter of his children was a melody that balanced the pressures of Juventus's expectations. The 1998 World Cup on home soil was a defining chapter. France, coached by Aimé Jacquet, entered the tournament with high hopes but tempered expectations. Zidane, wearing number 10, orchestrated the team's play from midfield. In the group stage, he showed glimpses of brilliance but also frustration, as in a match against Saudi Arabia when he was sent off for stamping on an opponent. Suspended for 2 games, he watched from the sidelines as his teammates battled on. The rain that fell on Paris during those days mirrored his mood, introspective and determined to make amends. In the semi-final against Croatia, he returned to help France reach the final. On 12 July 1998 at the Stade de France, under a stormy sky that cleared as the teams lined up, France faced Brazil. The stadium buzzed with anticipation, tricolour flags waving, the Marseillaise echoing. In the 27th minute, Zidane rose above defenders at a corner kick and headed the ball into the net. The roar was earth-shaking. Again, just before half-time, he repeated the feat, leaping like a dancer, neck muscles tensing as he directed the ball past the outstretched arms of Claudio Taffarel. His eyes widened in disbelief and joy. In injury time, Emmanuel Petit added a 3rd goal, sealing a 3-0 victory. France lifted the World Cup for the first time, and in that moment, Zinedine Zidane became not just a footballer, but a national hero. On the Champs-Élysées, millions celebrated under showers of confetti and rain, chanting his name. For children in La Castellane, he became proof that a boy from their estate could achieve anything. 2 years later, at Euro 2000 in the Netherlands and Belgium, Zidane was at the height of his powers. France had evolved, blending the defensive resilience of 1998 with a more fluid attack. In the quarter-final against Spain, he curled a free kick into the top corner, a ball that sailed through the evening air as if guided by invisible hands. In the semi-final against Portugal, he dribbled past defenders, drawing fouls and commanding tempo. When the match went to extra time tied at 1-1, the golden goal rule meant the next score would decide the outcome. France earned a penalty, and Zidane stepped forward. In the stillness that descended upon the King Baudouin Stadium, he looked at the goalkeeper, took a breath, and struck the ball into the net. His teammates swarmed him, their relief palpable. In the final against Italy, France came from behind thanks to a stoppage time goal by Sylvain Wiltord and a golden goal by David Trezeguet, sealing a 2-1 victory. Zidane was named player of the tournament. He had delivered France not just 1 but 2 major championships, cementing his legacy. the early years of the new millennium brought change. In 2001, at Real Madrid, the club of Alfredo Di Stefano and Ferenc Puskás embarked on their Galactico project under President Florentino Perez. They sought the world's best players, both for their brilliance on the pitch and the marketing allure of it. Perez paid a world record transfer fee to secure Zidane's services, seeing him as the jewel to complete a team that already boasted the talents of Luis Figo and Raúl. For Zidane, leaving Juventus meant leaving Italy's tactical rigour for Spain's emphasis on technical creativity. It also meant trading the grey skies of Turin for the golden light of Madrid, with its plazas, flamenco music, and the scent of orange blossoms. At the presentation in the Santiago Bernabeu, thousands of fans cheered as he donned the famous white shirt. He felt a mixture of excitement and pressure. Madridistas demanded excellence and entertainment. Under coach Vicente Del Bosque, he slotted into midfield alongside Claude Makélélé, who provided defensive stability, and forwards like Figo and Raúl, who thrived on his passes. In his debut season, he struggled at times with the language and style, yet he produced moments of genius. The most memorable came in the 2002 Champions League final against Bayer Leverkusen at Hampden Park in Glasgow. As the rain drizzled gently, Roberto Carlos whipped in a high-looping cross toward the edge of the penalty area. Zidane watched the ball descend, adjusted his body, and swung his left foot in a perfect arc. Time seemed to slow as his boot struck the ball. It flew into the top corner, the net bulging, the stadium erupting. That volley is still replayed across the world, a moment of pure artistry that sealed Real Madrid's 9th European Cup. Life in Madrid brought new experiences. He and Veronique explored the Prado Museum, marveling at Goya and Velázquez, and dined at tapas bars where they tasted pulpo a la gallega and jamón ibérico. Their children attended international schools, learning Spanish and making friends from diverse backgrounds. Zidane found solitude in the gardens of the Retiro Park, where he would walk around the lake, breathing in the scent of wet earth after rain. On the pitch, he built bonds with younger players like Iker Casillas and Guti, advising them not only on technique, but on humility. Though Real Madrid won La Liga in 2002-03, the project faced turbulence. Coaches came and went. New stars like David Beckham arrived, bringing commercial attention but disrupting balance. The team's defensive solidity weakened after the departure of Makélélé, and results suffered. Zidane himself battled injuries and fatigue. Age was catching up. By 2004-05, he felt the weight of constant expectations. Yet he continued to produce moments of brilliance, a deft pass through 3 defenders, a sudden change of pace, a flick to free a teammate. Off the field, he began contemplating his future. He received invitations to participate in charity matches, to speak about social issues, and to support causes dear to him. He remembered the poverty he had witnessed in La Castellane and in Algeria during family visits. He became involved with the European Leukodystrophy Association, ELA, reading dictations to students to raise awareness and funds for families affected by rare neurological diseases. He supported the La Pointe-Rose Association, offering comfort and resources to families of terminally ill children. He also donated to a charitable foundation in Algeria that he established with his father, directing millions of euros to support poor children and families in Kabylie. The 2006 World Cup in Germany was to be his last dance as a player. At 34, he had announced his intention to retire after the tournament. France struggled in the group stage, drawing with Switzerland and South Korea before defeating Togo. Zidane was suspended for the 3rd match due to yellow cards. It seemed as though the team would bow out quietly. but in the knockout rounds they rediscovered their spirit. Against Spain in the round of 16, Zidane assisted Patrick Vieira and scored a late goal, gliding past defenders as if time were rewinding to 1998. In the quarter-final against Brazil, he produced a masterclass, flicks, feints and a free kick that Thierry Henry converted. The semi-final against Portugal saw him score the only goal, a penalty struck with composure. The final in Berlin against Italy began with a daring Panenka-style penalty from Zidane, the ball clipping the underside of the crossbar and bouncing just over the line. The rain fell gently, mixing with the sweat and tension. Italy equalized through Marco Materazzi. For the next hour, the match remained locked. In extra time, words were exchanged between Zidane and Materazzi. The Italian had insulted his sister. In a flash of anger, Zidane turned and headbutted Materazzi in the chest. The stadium gasped. The referee showed a red card. Zidane walked off the field, passing the World Cup trophy as he exited. It was a surreal, painful moment, a Greek tragedy unfolding in real time. France ultimately lost on penalties. In the aftermath, opinions were divided. Some condemned his action, others empathized, arguing that constant provocation had pushed him over the edge. Zidane later apologized, but said he did not regret defending his family's honor. The image of him walking past the trophy became a symbol of the complexity of his career, brilliance, and flaw interwoven. Retirement opened a new chapter. Free from daily training, he dedicated more time to his family and philanthropic work. He accepted the role of Goodwill Ambassador for the United Nations Development Programme, joining forces with fellow legends like Ronaldo to organize annual matches against poverty. These games raised funds for development projects and allowed him to travel to countries such as Morocco and Senegal, where he connected with young fans and reminded them to dream beyond their circumstances. He was also a visible supporter of ELA, leading dictation exercises in schools, where children spelled out words related to solidarity and hope. He participated in skydiving and mountain climbing charity events, using his fame to attract sponsors and media attention. Despite his retirement, football remained in his blood. In 2010, he returned to Real Madrid as an advisor to Florentino Perez. He observed training sessions, accompanied the team to away matches, and offered insights into player psychology. He then served as assistant to coach Carlo Ancelotti during the 2013-14 season, when Real Madrid won La Decima, their 10th European Cup. In 2014, he took charge of Real Madrid Castilla, the club's reserve team. Coaching was a new challenge. He studied for his coaching badges, watching videos of Pep Guardiola, Marcelo Bielsa, and other tacticians. He learned to design training sessions to motivate players who were too young to remember his playing days. Patience was essential. In January 2016, after the dismissal of Rafael Benitez, Real Madrid promoted Zidane to first-team manager. Many questioned whether he was ready. He had never coached at the top level. The dressing room, full of stars like Cristiano Ronaldo, Sergio Ramos, Luka Modric, and Karim Benzema, required careful management. Zidane approached the job with humility. He emphasized communication, fairness, and trust. He consulted his players, explaining his decisions, rotating the squad to avoid fatigue. Tactically, he favored a 4-2-3 formation with two creative central midfielders and fullbacks pushing high. He demanded intensity in training, but allowed players to express themselves in matches. The results were remarkable. In his first season, he guided Real Madrid to the Champions League final and defeated Atletico Madrid on penalties. The following season, he won La Liga and retained the Champions League, beating Juventus 4-1 in the final. In 2018, he made history by winning a third consecutive Champions League, defeating Liverpool 3-1. His players spoke of his ability to create calmness under pressure. Ronaldo said that Zidane made him feel important. Ramos said he fostered unity. When Real Madrid won the 2019-20 La Liga title after a pandemic-induced hiatus, Zidane said it meant more to him than the Champions League because it required consistency over a long season. He emphasized the team's run of 10 straight wins after the restart and credited everyone from the goalkeeper to the kit man. Yet coaching was draining. He resigned in 2018 and again in 2021, citing the need for rest and feeling that the club no longer trusted him fully. In press conferences, he spoke with honesty, describing the difficulties of living under constant scrutiny. He spent time in Madrid and Marseille, visiting his parents, watching his son's matches and practicing yoga. He also maintained involvement with his charities, attending auctions like the Watches for ELA event, where he personally sold timepieces to raise funds. In Aveyron, he invested in Rodez Aveyron Football, his wife's hometown club, to help them survive financially. He never forgot the nights in La Castellane and his father's words about giving back. In recent years, speculation has swirled about his future. Reports have linked him to coaching the French national team after Didier Deschamps, to returning to Juventus or PSG, or even to taking on administrative roles. Journalists have spotted him at League One matches, analysing teams and players. Yet he remains deliberate. He has said that he misses the pitch, but only wants to return when the project feels right and his heart is fully committed. He values his time with family and the ability to attend his son's games. Enzo, who played as a midfielder like his father, retired in 2024 after stints in Spain and Portugal. Luca, a goalkeeper, switched allegiance to Algeria in 2025 and earned his first call-up. Theo and Elias, both promising talents, continue to forge their paths at Cordoba and Real Betis. Zidane supports them without pressuring them, advising them to enjoy football and to remain humble. Beyond his direct family, Zidane has become a symbol of unity and multiculturalism in France. His success in 1998 and 2000 helped heal social divisions, showing that children of immigrants could become national heroes. He has spoken against racism and discrimination, telling young people to embrace their heritage and to see their differences as strengths. When asked about coaching Algeria, he politely declined, explaining that he felt French and that his heart belonged to the country that gave his family opportunity. He remains proud of his Kabyle roots and visits Algeria, but he sees his mission as bridging cultures rather than choosing one over the other. As a player, Zidane was a poet of motion. His first touch was like a caress, cushioning the ball so gently it seemed to pause before obeying his will. His signature move, the roulette or Maradona, involved dragging the ball back with one foot while spinning and then pushing it forward with the other, deceiving defenders with grace and efficiency. He could deliver long diagonal passes that cut through defenses, short give-and-go combinations that unbalanced markers, and precise through balls that invited teammates to run into space. His posture was upright, his head held high, his awareness panoramic. He rarely had to look at the ball. He felt its position instinctively. He was not the fastest sprinter, but his acceleration over short distances and his ability to shield the ball made him elusive. He excelled in controlling tempo, quickening, or slowing the game at will. When he scored, it often looked effortless, a chipped penalty, a bullet header, a curling free kick. Even when he erred, he recovered with dignity. Off the field, he embodied humility. Despite being a global superstar, he maintained a quiet voice and a shy smile. He avoided flamboyant outfits and chose simple clothing. In interviews, he often looked down, searching for words, uncomfortable with praise. He credited his teammates and coaches for his success. He valued listening more than speaking. Friends described him as loyal and gentle, though capable of fierce passion when defending those he loved. His dedication to his wife Veronique never wavered. She had been his pillar since the early days in Cannes, supporting him through injuries, transfers, and media storms. They shared simple joys, cooking together, walking along beaches, watching their favorite films. Her presence allowed him to remain grounded amid the whirlwind of fame. As a father, he balanced discipline and warmth. He taught his sons to respect elders, to eat meals together, to value education. He told them stories of Kabylie, of their grandparents' struggles, of the importance of generosity. During family dinners, the conversation often shifted among French, Spanish, and occasional snippets of Berber. They traveled to Aveyron, where Veronique's parents owned a farm, and to Algeria, where extended family awaited. In both places, rain often accompanied them, falling on farm fields or olive groves. The rain became a motif in their lives, a sound that reminded them of continuity, of seasons turning, of life's cycles. In reflecting on his journey, Zidane often returns to the theme of work. Talent, he says, is nothing without effort. He recalls early mornings running along the beach in Cannes, afternoons practicing free kicks in Turin, evenings analyzing videos in Madrid. He emphasizes habits, proper nutrition, sleep, recovery, mental preparation. Before matches, he used visualization, picturing the field, the opponents, the first touch. He practiced breathing exercises to calm his nerves. After matches, he recovered with ice baths and massages, listened to classical or Algerian music, and wrote notes about what he could improve. These routines, he argues, apply beyond football. Whether one is a surgeon, a teacher, or an artist, discipline and reflection lead to mastery. Some of his most memorable matches outside the major finals reveal his resilience. In 1997, he scored a stunning free kick against Milan in a league match at San Siro, curling the ball over the wall into the top corner. In 2003, he delivered a passing masterclass against Manchester United at Old Trafford, controlling the tempo and assisting 2 goals in the 3-1 victory. At Euro 2004, he led a late comeback against England, scoring a free kick and a penalty in stoppage time. In the 2002-03 Champions League quarter-final against Barcelona, he scored at Camp Nou, silencing the home crowd. Each performance reinforced his reputation as a player who thrived under pressure and who found joy in the artistry of football. His relationship with fans has always been intimate. He appreciates that people support him not because of marketing, but because they see themselves in his story. He signs autographs patiently, taking time to ask names and personalize messages. He refuses to promote products he does not believe in. On social media, he posts rarely, preferring face-to-face connections. He responds to letters from children, offering encouragement and telling them to listen to their parents and teachers. During public appearances, he ensures accessibility for fans with disabilities, arranging seats and signing sessions. He believes that fame carries responsibility to set an example of kindness, to recognize the humanity of those who admire you. Stories abound of him visiting sick children without cameras, of funding renovations for community pitches, of paying for another customer's groceries quietly at a supermarket. Perhaps what makes Zidane's story so compelling is its human texture. It is not merely the tale of a gifted athlete who won trophies, but the journey of a boy who navigated poverty, identity, love, and loss with grace. He experienced prejudice. He once said that as an Algerian Frenchman, he had to prove himself twice. He witnessed violence in Marseille and racism in stadiums, yet he chose to respond with dignity. He made mistakes. The headbutt in 2006 is the most glaring, yet he owned them and continued forward. He took risks, moving across countries and languages, trusting his instincts and the support of loved ones. As rumors swirl about his next step, he remains at peace with uncertainty. He spends mornings at home, coffee steaming beside him, reading newspapers and novels, listening to the soft patter of rain on the terrace. He takes long walks, sometimes alone, sometimes with Veronique, sometimes with his sons when they visit. He watches football, not as a spectator, but as a student, noting patterns, imagining how he would set up teams differently. He gardens, tending to herbs and flowers, finding satisfaction in nurturing life from soil. He visits museums and art galleries, drawn to paintings that capture movement and emotion, perhaps because they remind him of football's choreography. He writes in a journal, capturing reflections about fatherhood, memory, and time. For those who grew up watching him, he is a bridge between eras. He links the street football of the 1980s to the globalized, media-saturated game of the 2000s. He inspired players like Andres Iniesta, Luka Modric, and Paul Pogba, who each cite him as a model for creativity and balance. Coaches study his ability to manage egos at Real Madrid, replicating his rotation policies and man management techniques. Fans wear his number 10 jersey not only because of the goals, but because of what he stands for: humility, beauty, and the possibility that a poor boy from La Castellane can conquer the world and remain grounded. As this rainy, immersive journey nears its end, imagine once more the sound of rain outside your window, the gentle rhythm that has accompanied us through this story. Picture a boy with a ball at his feet in a concrete courtyard, his laughter echoing between grey walls. Picture a young man leaving his family to chase a dream in Cannes, a father passing down wisdom about dignity and resilience. Picture a player in white rising to head the ball as an entire country holds its breath, a coach calmly pacing the technical area as his team edges closer to glory. These images overlap like drops merging into a stream. When you think of Zinedine Zidane now, perhaps you will not only recall a volley in Glasgow or a headbutt in Berlin, but the rain-soaked path he travelled to get there and the lessons he has carried with him. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life and legacy of Zinedine Zidane. If you found peace and inspiration in this story, please consider subscribing to our channel, Whistle and Whisper, for more stories told with care and calm. We appreciate your presence and look forward to sharing more gentle tales of sport and humanity. Don't forget to click like, leave a thoughtful comment, and ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next exploration. Until then, may the sound of rain bring you comfort, and may the memories of a great footballer lull you into restful dreams. Imagine strolling through the streets of Cannes in the late 1980s, just as the scent of blooming jasmine begins to mingle with the tang of the sea. A young footballer, barely old enough to vote, attends training sessions in the morning and spends his afternoons wandering down narrow streets, his mind buzzing with dreams. It is here that Zinedine meets Veronique Fernandez, a dancer whose life revolves around the discipline of movement and rhythm. She is studying at the Rosella Hightower School, perfecting pirouettes and pliés. But when she spots the tall, shy boy with quick feet and gentle eyes, she is drawn not to his athleticism, but to his humility. Their connection sparks at a youth hostel where both reside. They talk about the music they love, the foods they miss from their childhood, and the feeling of being outsiders. He is the son of Algerian immigrants in France. She is a girl of Spanish descent living on the French Riviera. Their courtship is simple and pure. They walk along the beach during the golden hour when the sun dips low and bathes the world in amber light. Sometimes they sit on benches overlooking the harbour, sharing cones of pistachio and vanilla ice cream, laughing at the antics of seagulls. They write letters to each other when schedules keep them apart, filling pages with thoughts and sketches. Their love grows as they share mundane rituals. Grocery shopping at the local market, cooking meals of couscous and paella, watching television shows in one language and then another, translating jokes and puns. Zinedine appreciates Veronique's honesty and her willingness to challenge him. She insists he finish his education. She reminds him to phone his mother. She teaches him a few steps of flamenco when he feels clumsy. As Zinedine's career gathers momentum, their relationship becomes a sanctuary. He confides in her his fears of failure, his frustration when he struggles to adapt to new tactics or languages. She listens and responds with warmth, encouraging him to see setbacks as opportunities to grow. When he decides to join Bordeaux, she does not protest the move away from Cannes, but accompanies him on weekend visits to explore the new city, commenting on the grand architecture and the smell of baked bread from boulangeries. They discover little cafes under stone arches, where musicians play jazz in dark corners and artists sell watercolor paintings of the river. Together they create a home filled with music and laughter. They hang photographs of their families, burn incense from Algeria and Spain, and adopt a kitten that curls up at Zinedine's feet when he studies match tapes. In 1994, they marry in Bordeaux's town hall. The ceremony is small, attended by family and close friends. Veronique wears an elegant yet understated dress, her hair pinned with small white flowers. Zinedine wears a simple suit and cannot stop smiling. His eyes glisten when he sees his parents sitting in the front row, proud and tearful. During the reception, they dance to a mix of Ray and flamenco, reflecting their blended heritage. Cousins teach each other steps, children chase each other around tables, elders share stories of the old country. Rain falls gently outside, as if blessing the union, and the sound of raindrops on the windows harmonizes with the music. As the years pass, the couple's bond deepens through shared experiences of uprooting and starting anew. They move from Bordeaux to Turin, where Veronique learns Italian recipes and decorates their apartment with pieces they find in street markets: a rustic mirror, a ceramic bowl, a painting of the Alps. She learns to navigate the city's labyrinthine streets and to say thank you with the right intonation. She befriends other players' partners, forming a support network that shares childcare duties when their husbands are away. When they later move to Madrid, she becomes involved in local charities, volunteering at soup kitchens and hospitals, bringing along their sons to instill empathy and gratitude. She explores flamenco clubs in Andalusia, reawakening her dance training and sometimes joining in rehearsals. Veronique's influence on Zidane's life cannot be overstated. She is the one who persuades him to invest in his own community. She explains that success is hollow unless shared. She gently but persistently encourages him to speak publicly on causes close to his heart, reminding him that his voice can amplify the struggles of others. During the 2006 World Cup, when he faces criticism for his actions, she comforts him privately and reminds him that he is loved unconditionally. She also reminds him to apologize when necessary and to learn from his mistakes. Their partnership becomes a symbol of quiet strength, showing that behind great achievements often stands a foundation built from love, understanding, and mutual respect. They raise 4 sons with the same principles that guided their own lives. At home, they enforce rules about table manners, homework, and helping with chores. Yet they also create an environment where creativity is nurtured. There are musical instruments in the living room, paintbrushes and canvases in a corner, and stacks of books in multiple languages. Family dinners are lively affairs, with debates ranging from which spice tastes best in lamb stew to whether a particular goal was better than another. Zinedine and Veronique tell stories of their childhoods, emphasizing the sacrifices of grandparents and the importance of kindness. They watch their sons play football in the backyard, sometimes joining them for a casual kickabout, sometimes staying indoors to let them forge their own style. Over the decades, their love story remains anchored by shared values. They never lose their sense of humor. They still tease each other about who is the better dancer, who pronounces certain words correctly, who takes longer to get ready. They prioritize privacy, avoiding tabloids and focusing on the simple pleasures of daily life, morning coffee on the balcony, reading books together in bed, attending a neighbor's birthday party. Their loyalty to each other is unwavering. When rumors circulate about Zinedine taking new coaching jobs or moving to another country, Veronique's support is the constant in his decision-making. She asks him what will make him happy, what will allow him to grow, and what impact his choices will have on their family and charitable work. The rain motif weaves through their love story like a recurring melody. Rain accompanies their first kiss on a quiet sidewalk in Cannes. Rain falls on the day they marry. Rain taps on the window when they hold their first son. Rain patters outside when they watch their sons drive away to their own adventures. In each instance, rain signifies renewal and continuity. When storms hit their lives, whether through injuries, public criticism, or personal loss, they stand together under one umbrella, facing whatever comes with grace and confidence. Their love is not loud or dramatic, but deep and enduring, a steady heartbeat that provides rhythm to the long symphony of Zinedine's life. This foundation of love enriches every match, every triumph, every setback, and it remains one of the most beautiful and human parts of his story. Bordeaux, often called the Port of the Moon, because of the crescent shape of the Garonne River, became more than a pit stop in Zinedine's career. It was a university for life and football. When he arrived in 1992, he found a club in transition, with a team full of seasoned professionals and young talents. The city itself was undergoing change. Old warehouses were being converted into lofts, tram lines were under construction, and the streets were lined with plane trees that shed their leaves in the rain. The football club, under President Alain Afflelou and coach Roland Courbis, was rebuilding after financial difficulties, focusing on technical play and nurturing youth. For Zidane, the move to Bordeaux meant leaving the familiarity of the Mediterranean climate for the maritime weather of the Atlantic coast. The air often smelled of rain and river, giving the city a slightly melancholic charm. On weekdays, he would train at Le Highland, the club's modern training complex surrounded by pine forests. The sound of boots on wet grass and the tactile sensation of mud squishing under his studs became part of his daily routine. On weekends, he would walk along the quays, observing ships docking and unloading goods from across the world. He would watch fishermen fix their nets and imagine the voyages those ships made, thinking about his own journey from La Castellane to this new world. On the pitch, he quickly became the axis around which the team revolved. His partnership with Christophe Dugarry, a forward with a powerful shot, and Bixente Lizarazu, a dynamic left-back, was the engine of Bordeaux's renaissance. They understood each other's movements instinctively. When Zidane advanced with the ball, Dugarry drifted into space, and Lizarazu overlapped to provide an option. Their style, fluid and expressive, contrasted with the pragmatic strategies of some opponents. Rain often fell during matches, turning the pitch into a slick surface that suited Zidane's quick turns and long strides. He loved the challenge of controlling a ball that skidded unpredictably. It sharpened his touch and forced him to think faster. The 1995-96 UEFA Cup run remains one of the most romantic chapters of his Bordeaux period. In that campaign, they faced AC Milan, the reigning European champions. In the first leg at San Siro, they lost 2-0. The Italian press declared the tie over. But in the return leg at Parc Lescure, under a persistent drizzle, Bordeaux produced a performance that would live in the memory of supporters forever. Zidane controlled the midfield, dictating tempo and delivering passes that cut through the rigid Italian defense. Dugarry scored twice and Zinedine himself provided the assist for the decisive goal. The crowd's joy was palpable. Many had come to the stadium with umbrellas and plastic ponchos, expecting to get soaked but leaving with their hearts full. Even though Bordeaux lost the final to Bayern Munich, the journey to that stage gave the young playmaker invaluable experience against some of Europe's best. Off the field, Bordeaux offered him a cultural richness he embraced. He visited the city's famed wine estates on rest days, strolling through vineyards that stretched like green oceans under grey skies. He listened to winemakers explain the importance of weather, soil, and patience in producing quality wine. He drew parallels between their craft and football. Both required a balance of science and intuition, careful timing, and respect for heritage. He also discovered literature in a deeper way. He frequented bookstores along Rue Sainte-Catherine, buying novels by Marguerite Duras and philosophy books by Jean-Paul Sartre. On rainy evenings, he would sit in his apartment, the faint sound of raindrops on the window, and lose himself in worlds created by words, finding perspective and calm. Zinedine also learned leadership in Bordeaux. As his importance to the team grew, younger players looked to him for guidance. He observed how older teammates like Captain Gernot Rohr interacted with the coach and the media. He noticed the way a positive gesture could lift a teammate's spirits while a harsh word could demoralize. He began to speak up in the locker room, asking colleagues what they needed and offering advice. When the team lost, he encouraged them to analyze mistakes collectively rather than assign blame. When they won, he reminded them to stay humble. He learned the delicate balance of assertiveness and empathy that would later serve him as a coach. Living in Bordeaux also expanded his palate. He learned to appreciate local dishes like cannelés, small, rum-flavored pastries with caramelized crusts, and entrecôte cooked with shallots and red wine. He shopped at the Marché des Capuchins, sampling oysters from Arcachon, cheeses from the Pyrenees, and charcuterie. He experimented with cooking at home, sometimes calling his mother for recipes and adding his own twists. Rainy days often became cooking experiments. He and Veronique would prepare taquines filled with lamb and apricots, or Spanish tortilla with potatoes and onions, mixing flavors and cultures. He discovered that food, like football, can bring people together, spark conversation, and reflect identity. As the team traveled across France and Europe, he absorbed sights and sounds of other cities: the Gothic cathedral in Strasbourg, the canals of Venice, the medieval walls of Prague. He made a habit of visiting local museums, seeking out impressionist paintings or historical artifacts. In doing so, he nurtured a curiosity about the world that extended beyond the confines of the pitch. This curiosity would later influence the way he viewed opponents and coached players. He never saw tactics in isolation, but as part of a broader cultural and human context. By the time he left Bordeaux for Juventus, he carried with him more than statistics or highlights. He carried an education in patience, camaraderie, and cultural appreciation. The city's rainy days and golden autumns had shaped his temperament. The camaraderie with teammates had taught him the value of trust and shared vision. The understanding of local customs and history had broadened his outlook on life. In later interviews, when asked about his favorite period before he reached the heights of Real Madrid, he often speaks fondly of Bordeaux. He remembers the fans who waited in the rain to get autographs, the children who imitated his moves on the street, the bakers who offered him free bread after a win. He recalls the way the river reflected city lights like a mirror on misty nights. He is grateful that, before he stood in front of tens of thousands at the Bernabeu, he had experienced the intimacy of a city that taught him to savor the journey as much as the destination. Turin sits in the shadow of the Alps, a city of elegant boulevards, hidden courtyards and cafes, where locals linger over espresso and debate football tactics for hours. When Zidane arrived in 1996, he entered a culture obsessed with precision and tradition. Juventus embodied that culture. The club's motto, "Fino alla fine," until the end, encapsulated their relentless pursuit of victory. Under coach Marcello Lippi, training sessions were meticulously planned, focusing on organisation, pressing and mental toughness. For Zinedine, who had just spent 4 years in the relatively free-flowing environment of Bordeaux, adaptation required patience and humility. The first few months were a baptism of fire. Italian defenders marked tightly, using every permitted and sometimes unpermitted tactic to disrupt his rhythm. The press scrutinised his every touch, comparing him to Michel Platini, another French legend who had succeeded at Juventus. In early matches, his passes were intercepted, his dribbles thwarted, and his confidence shaken. However, behind the scenes, teammates supported him. Antonio Conte, known for his tenacity, offered encouragement during training. Didier Deschamps, a compatriot and fellow 1998 World Cup winner, helped him navigate the language barrier and cultural nuances. Alessandro Del Piero, already a fan favourite, linked well with him on the pitch, understanding his timing and vision. Gradually, Zinedine began to flourish. He improved his physical conditioning to cope with Serie A's intensity. He adjusted his positioning, dropping deeper to orchestrate play or pushing forward to exploit gaps. In practice, he spent extra time on free kicks and long-range shots, taking advantage of the crisp, dry air that allowed the ball to travel swiftly. He developed a rapport with Lippi, appreciating his tactical acumen and man management skills. Lippi trusted Zidane to take risks in creative zones while ensuring he contributed defensively when needed. It was at Juventus that Zidane fine-tuned the duality of his game, artist and soldier, playmaker and workhorse. The 1996-97 season culminated in a Serie A title. Juventus dominated domestic competition with a blend of attacking fluency and defensive steel. Zidane's contribution was significant. He provided assists that would be replayed across Italian television, making diagonal passes that took out entire defensive lines. In the Champions League, he experienced heartbreak when Juventus lost the final to Borussia Dortmund in Munich. That loss stung, not least because of his own dream of lifting Europe's most prestigious trophy. However, defeat taught him resilience and the importance of collective effort. Rain fell after the final, and he stood alone for a moment on the pitch, feeling droplets on his skin, promising himself silently that one day he would hold that trophy. Off the field, Turin offered a canvas for new experiences. Zinedine and Veronique explored markets like Porto Palazzo, where vendors sold everything from fresh truffles to handmade pasta. They ventured into the hills of Laon, tasting wines like Barolo and Barbaresco, learning from winemakers about the patience required for vintages to mature. They attended opera at the Teatro Regio, marveling at performances of Verdi and Puccini. They visited museums dedicated to the city's industrial heritage and art collections. They also felt at home in communities of North African immigrants who greeted them with warmth, offering couscous and mint tea in modest apartments with rain-streaked windows. In Turin, their family grew. Their sons Enzo and Luca began attending local schools, learning Italian quickly and making friends from diverse backgrounds. Zinedine would walk them to school on rainy mornings, enjoying the sound of their voices as they practiced new words. He loved hearing them switch between French, Italian, and bits of Spanish and Berber, a living embodiment of their multicultural heritage. Family outings often included trips to the nearby mountains, where they hiked among pine trees and breathed in the scent of wet earth after rain. Those excursions provided balance to the pressures of football. The mountains reminded him of Kabylie, grounding him in nature's vastness. After winning another Serie A title in 1997-98 and the Intercontinental Cup, Zidane's reputation continued to grow. The 1998 Ballon d'Or crowned him the best player in the world, recognition of his influence on both Juventus and the French national team. Yet he remained modest, attributing his success to his coaches, teammates, and family. He insisted that his achievements were part of a collective journey and that personal accolades meant little without shared joy. He kept in touch with friends from La Castellane, inviting them to visit him, and he sent money to support community projects. He felt a responsibility to show young people from his neighborhood that dreams could be realized with hard work and guidance. One of the defining moments of his Juventus career came in the 1998-99 Champions League quarterfinals against Olympiacos. The Greek team defended deep, and the match seemed destined for a stalemate. In the final minutes, under heavy rain that turned the pitch into a slippery canvas, Zidane received the ball near the edge of the penalty area. He faked a shot, sending one defender sliding past, then used his left foot to chip the ball delicately over the keeper. The ball floated like a raindrop suspended in midair before nestling in the net. The stadium erupted. That goal, more than his long-range strikes or free kicks, epitomized his creativity and composure under pressure. By 2001, change beckoned. Juventus, though successful, had a conservative playing style that sometimes restricted his creativity. Real Madrid's ambitious president, Florentino Perez, envisioned a team of Galacticos and saw Zidane as the final piece. Leaving Turin meant leaving the structure and camaraderie that had nurtured him. He sought counsel from family and friends. Veronique reminded him that he had always thrived when stepping outside his comfort zone. Del Piero hugged him and wished him luck. Conte joked that he would miss their debates about who made the best pasta. With a mixture of sadness and excitement, he said farewell to Italy, thanked the Tifosi for their unwavering support, and promised to carry Juventus in his heart. His time in Turin remained etched in his memory, not because of trophies alone, but because of the personal growth it fostered. He had become physically stronger, tactically smarter, and emotionally more resilient. He had learned to maintain elegance under pressure, to endure harsh tackles and criticisms without losing his temper. He had seen his family thrive in a new culture. He had forged bonds with teammates that would last a lifetime. Years later, when he returned as a coach or ambassador, he felt a warm reception from fans who remembered his contributions. Turin had taught him that excellence arises from discipline and adaptation, and that beauty does not diminish when it exists within structure. The lessons from those rainy training sessions and tense matches would inform his approach to football forever. When the 1998 World Cup arrived, France transformed into a stage where hopes and anxieties played out under summer showers. Streets were draped in blue, white and red. Bakeries displayed baguettes shaped like footballs. Children painted their faces and reenacted imagined goals on school playgrounds. For Zidane, the tournament was both a dream realized and a heavy mantle. He had grown up watching tournaments on television with his father in their cramped living room, hearing commentary that crackled on a small set, and fantasizing about wearing the national jersey. Now, he stood as the linchpin of the French team, the conductor who would guide Les Bleus through their campaign. The group stage began with tentative performances. Against South Africa and Saudi Arabia, France showed promise, scoring goals and keeping clean sheets, but in the second match, a moment of frustration threatened to derail Zidane's journey. Provoked by a defender's persistent fouls, he lashed out and received a red card. The stadium fell silent, raindrops shimmering under floodlights like tiny pearls as he walked off the pitch. Critics pounced, labeling him hot-headed. At the team's training base in Clairefontaine, he spent his suspension reflecting, watching rain slide down the windows, feeling the weight of expectation and the sting of guilt. His teammates visited his room, telling him to forgive himself and focus on the future. Coach Aimé Jacquet spoke to him calmly, telling him that every hero's journey includes trials and that redemption awaited. His redemption began in the quarter-final against Italy, where France held firm through 90 minutes and extra time, eventually winning on penalties in a drizzle that amplified the tension. Zinedine did not take a penalty, standing instead with his arm around a younger teammate, whispering encouragement. In the semi-final against Croatia, he returned to the starting lineup. The pitch was slick and the stakes high. Davor Ruka scored early in the second half for Croatia, and hearts sank across France. But almost immediately, Lilian Thuram, a defender known more for his tackling than his finishing, equalized. Zidane's presence calmed the team. His passes cut through the Croatian midfield like streams carving through rock. Thuram scored again, and France held on. The final whistle coincided with a sudden downpour, as if the heavens celebrated with the fans. The final, played on 12 July 1998 at the Stade de France, unfolded under skies that threatened rain but held back until after the national anthems. Brazil, with the legendary Ronaldo, stood between France and their first World Cup. From the first whistle, France pressed, tackling hard and closing down spaces. In the 27th minute, Zidane positioned himself at the near post during a corner kick. As Emmanuel Petit swung the ball into the box, Zinedine leapt. For a split second the world seemed still, his eyes on the ball, his neck muscles tense, his feet leaving the ground. He connected with his forehead, redirecting the ball past the defender and goalkeeper. The stadium exploded. Thunderous applause and chants of his name reverberated through the stands and into the cloudy sky. Before half-time, he repeated the feat, again heading in a corner from the opposite side. Later, Petit added a third goal, ensuring victory. As rain began to fall softly during the trophy presentation, Zidane lifted the World Cup, his smile mixing joy and disbelief. In that moment, he was not only Zinedine from La Castellane, but Zinedine the national treasure. The celebrations across France lasted for days. In Paris, people danced in the rain at the Champs-Élysées, hugging strangers and singing the Marseillaise. In Marseille, fireworks lit up the old port, and old men in cafes wiped tears from their eyes. In La Castellane, neighbors who had once worried about crime and unemployment now shared food and music late into the night, proud that a son of their community had brought glory to the nation. Zidane visited his neighborhood soon after, the smell of rain still lingering on the streets. He embraced old friends, posed for photos in front of the local football pitch, and listened to his father recount how he had watched the final with friends in the same living room where they had once watched Platini. What many may not know is how much the victory meant to people beyond France. In Algeria, his parents' homeland, celebrations erupted. Newspapers hailed him as El Zizou, the prodigal son. In Senegal, Morocco, and across the Mediterranean, youth saw in him a bridge between North Africa and Europe. He visited the Maghreb after the World Cup, meeting young fans, handing out signed footballs, and speaking about the importance of education. In public speeches, he emphasized that his success came not from individual talent alone, but from community support, hard work, and the courage to dream. He told stories of playing in the rain as a child and compared those days to the rain-soaked final in Paris, reminding listeners that humble beginnings can lead to extraordinary achievements. The 1998 World Cup also influenced his philosophical outlook. Having tasted ultimate success and national adulation, he realized that external validation could be fleeting. He returned to Juventus with the same hunger, refusing to rest on laurels. He also became more vocal about issues of identity and inclusion. In interviews, he acknowledged his Algerian roots and spoke about France's diversity as a strength. He visited schools and youth centers in deprived areas, encouraging children of immigrants to believe in themselves. He supported campaigns against racism in sport, lending his voice to organizations that fought discrimination. These actions planted seeds for his later philanthropic work, showing that he understood his role extended beyond football. In many ways, the rain that accompanied the 1998 World Cup final symbolized a cleansing moment for France. The team's success, led by players of various backgrounds, challenged narratives of exclusion and demonstrated that unity and diversity could coexist. Zidane stood as the embodiment of that message. He honored his parents' sacrifices, celebrated his cultural heritage, and exemplified excellence. On nights when rain falls gently outside and his name is whispered in sleep stories, the memories of that tournament continue to evoke pride and inspire new dreams. Euro 2000, held in Belgium and the Netherlands, allowed Zidane to refine the artistry he had displayed 2 years earlier. France entered the tournament as world champions, but carried the burden of expectation. Opponents studied their patterns and planned countermeasures. The tournament took place in early summer, with cities like Brussels and Amsterdam adorned with flags and fan zones full of music, laughter, and occasional showers. As always, Zidane sought tranquility amid the bustle. He would sit by hotel windows, watching rain bead on the glass, listening to the hum of fans outside, and focusing his mind on the matches ahead. France's group stage included games against Denmark, the Czech Republic, and the Netherlands. Against Denmark, on a pitch glistening from recent rain, Zidane orchestrated attacks with sweeping passes and clever 1-2s. He always seemed to know when to accelerate or slow down. Against the Czechs, he scored a penalty, his approach measured, his body language unreadable as he sent the goalkeeper the wrong way. The match against the Netherlands, co-hosts and formidable opponents, served as a rehearsal for potential knockouts. The Dutch crowd sang relentlessly, their orange banners waving like autumn leaves in the wind. France lost the match but learned valuable lessons about managing tempo and dealing with passionate atmospheres. In the quarter-final against Spain, played in Bruges, rain began to fall moments before kickoff, soaking the already saturated pitch. The ball zipped across the surface, encouraging quick play. Early in the match, France won a free kick just outside Spain's penalty area. Zidane placed the ball carefully, took a few steps back, and glanced at the wall. He exhaled slowly, as if releasing all tension, then struck the ball with the inside of his right foot. It curled over the wall and dipped under the crossbar, leaving goalkeeper Iker Casillas rooted. The crowd gasped in appreciation. Later, Spain equalized through a penalty, but France regained the lead with a goal from Yuri Djorkaeff. In the dying minutes, Spain were awarded another penalty. Raúl stepped up, but sent his shot over the bar. As rain cascaded onto players and fans, France celebrated progress to the semi-final. After the match, Zidane spoke humbly, emphasizing the team effort and acknowledging the role of luck in football. The semi-final against Portugal in Brussels became a test of mental fortitude. Portugal boasted a golden generation, including Luis Figo, Rui Costa, and young talent Nuno Gomes. The match flowed from end to end, with each team creating chances. Rain clouds threatened but held back, leaving the air thick with humidity. Zidane found pockets of space, swiveling to evade markers, combining with Henry and Dugadi. Portugal scored first through a close-range finish by Gomes. France responded through Thierry Henry, who finished a cross after a series of slick passes. With the score tied after 90 minutes, the match went to extra time. Under the golden goal rule, the first team to score would win. Tensions rose, every attack could decide the match. In the 117th minute, Sylvain Wiltord's pass found David Trezeguet, who flicked it into the penalty area. Abel Xavier handled the ball and the referee awarded a penalty. Portuguese players protested vehemently, but the decision stood. Zidane stepped forward amid whistles and chanting. He closed his eyes briefly, perhaps picturing the ball's trajectory. He ran up and drove the ball into the top corner. The net bulged, the whistle blew, and France were through to the final. Zidane's teammates swarmed him. He hugged them, relief etched on his face. The final, in Rotterdam, pitted France against Italy, another nation with a strong defensive reputation. The Italians scored first through Marco Del Vecchio, and for much of the match it seemed they would triumph. France pressed, sending cross after cross into the box, but Italy repelled them. Rain sprinkled intermittently, a light mist that clung to players' jerseys. In stoppage time, with seconds remaining, Wiltord slid a shot past Francesco Toldo, equalizing. The French bench erupted. In extra time, under the golden goal rule, France attacked with purpose. Robert Pires dribbled past his marker on the left wing, reached the byline and cut the ball back toward the penalty spot. Zidane had drifted towards the edge of the box to draw defenders away. The ball reached Trezeguet, who struck it on the half volley. The ball flew into the roof of the net and the stadium roared. The match ended instantly. France became the first team to win the World Cup and European Championship consecutively. Zidane's performances earned him the Player of the Tournament award. He dominated the midfield with an effortless grace that belied the effort behind it. He shielded the ball using his body, carried it forward on slick surfaces with delicate touches, and delivered passes with surgical precision. Off the pitch, he remained grounded. He celebrated with teammates, joined in singing and dancing in the rain, and then retreated to call his wife and parents to share the joy. He understood that such moments were precious and could not be taken for granted. In post-tournament interviews, he deflected praise and reiterated the importance of teamwork and preparation. His humility endeared him to fans across Europe. Euro 2000 deepened his understanding of the psychological side of football. He saw how momentum and morale could shift in seconds, how the difference between glory and heartbreak could hinge on a single penalty or interception. He witnessed how players reacted under extreme pressure and learned to keep his own nerves in check through breathing exercises and positive self-talk. These lessons later informed his coaching philosophy. He emphasized to his players the need for mental resilience, focus on the present, and belief in their abilities. He also embraced the golden goal rule as a metaphor for seizing opportunities. In life, as in football, chances could appear suddenly, and one must be ready to take them decisively. When Zinedine Zidane joined Real Madrid in 2001, he stepped onto a stage steeped in history and expectation. The club, founded in 1902 and known as Los Blancos, considered themselves more than a football team. They were an institution with a global fan base and a tradition of playing attacking, beautiful football. The Santiago Bernabéu Stadium, with its towering stands and sea of white jerseys, became the theatre in which Zidane would perform some of his most memorable acts. He arrived amid a period dubbed the Galactico era, a project devised by President Florentino Perez to bring together the world's best players. The dressing room already housed Luis Figo, the elegant Portuguese winger Raul Gonzalez, the talismanic homegrown striker, and Roberto Carlos, the tireless Brazilian fullback. Adapting to Real Madrid required adjustments. La Liga, with its emphasis on technical skill and fluid movement, suited Zidane, but the club's culture demanded immediate success and spectacular play. He had to learn Spanish quickly to communicate with teammates and media. He took lessons in the evenings, practicing phrases and conjugations while listening to the rain outside his apartment. He watched Spanish films without subtitles to attune his ear and read newspapers to understand local football politics. He also immersed himself in the club's history, studying tapes of Di Stefano and Puskás to appreciate the lineage he was joining. On the pitch, coach Vicente Del Bosque gave him freedom to roam. Positioned often in the left central midfield, he connected defence and attack. His relationship with Claude Makelele, the French defensive midfielder, was crucial. Makelele covered space behind him, allowing Zidane to push forward without leaving gaps. In training, they practiced patterns. Zidane would drop deep to receive from defenders, turn with one touch, and find Figo or Raul in space. They rehearsed set-piece routines. His free kicks arc like shooting stars, and his corners found teammates with unerring accuracy. The team's style emphasized ball retention and positional interchange, making their matches feel like choreographed dances played out on emerald canvases. One of his first significant contributions came in the Champions League. Real Madrid progressed through the group stages and faced Bayer Leverkusen in the final. The match took place at Hampden Park, Glasgow, a stadium where the weather can change in minutes. Early in the game, Real Madrid scored through Raul, but Leverkusen equalized via Lucio. As half-time approached, the scores were level. Then, just before the break, Roberto Carlos sprinted down the left and delivered a looping cross. Zidane, standing at the edge of the box with his body turned sideways, watched the ball descend like a meteor. He lifted his left foot, a gesture both powerful and graceful, and struck the ball in mid-air. The ball flew into the top corner. Fans froze in awe before erupting in cheers. Commentators lost their voices. The goal would be replayed on televisions around the world, but in that instant, under a drizzle that glistened in the floodlights, time seemed to stop. Real Madrid held on to win 2-1, and Zidane finally claimed the trophy that had eluded him at Juventus. Beyond that moment, his time at Real Madrid was filled with highs and lows that showcased both his resilience and vulnerability. In La Liga, he dazzled crowds with dribbles and passes. He developed an understanding with Ronaldo, who joined in 2002, combining through balls with the Brazilian's runs. Yet the squad was also unbalanced. After the sale of Makelele in 2003, the team lacked a defensive anchor. Coaches came and went, each bringing different philosophies. Jose Antonio Camacho emphasized discipline, while Vanderlei Luxemburgo focused on attacking flair. This instability affected results. Real Madrid won the 2002 W3 La Liga title, but struggled in Europe in subsequent seasons. Zidane shouldered responsibility, sometimes dropping deeper to compensate for team weaknesses, sometimes pushing forward to inspire comebacks. Off the pitch, he adapted to life in Spain with enthusiasm. He learned to appreciate flamenco's haunting melodies and the artistry of bullfighting, even while disapproving of its cruelty. He visited museums like the Prado and the Reina Sofia, standing for hours before Picasso's Guernica, contemplating the painting's power and the brutality of war. He explored Madrid's neighborhoods, from the bustling Puerta del Sol to the quiet alleys of La Latina. He developed friendships with locals, including artists and chefs who introduced him to Spanish cuisine beyond paella, popo a la galega, pimientos de padrón, churros dipped in thick chocolate. He found in the Spanish way of life a rhythm that suited him, intense yet relaxed, passionate yet contemplative. In training, he took younger players under his wing. Iker Casillas, the goalkeeper who had debuted at 18, remembers Zidane inviting him to dinner and advising him to remain humble despite early successes. Guti, an academy graduate with mercurial talent, recalled Zidane teaching him about positioning and decision-making. In return, the younger players brought energy and humour to the dressing room. They often pranked him, hiding his boots or filling his locker with confetti. Zidane responded with laughter, appreciating the camaraderie that reminded him of his days in La Castellane and Bordeaux. The later years of his Real Madrid career were marked by physical decline. His knees felt the wear of years of twisting and turning. He managed his body carefully, taking days off when joints swelled, spending hours with physiotherapists doing yoga and swimming to maintain flexibility. He adjusted his game, relying more on vision and timing than on bursts of speed. He still produced moments of brilliance, a no-look pass to Ronaldo against Barcelona, a chipped goal against Villarreal, a volley against Sevilla. But he also had quieter games where he covered less ground, prompting criticism from impatient fans who measured greatness by constant fireworks. He learned to accept that careers, like seasons, have cycles. What mattered was not clinging to past heights, but contributing whatever he could in the present. His decision to retire in 2006 was not abrupt, but a culmination of introspection. He felt his body signaling that it was time, and he wished to leave while still performing at a high level. He announced his retirement after the World Cup, ensuring his club knew to plan for the future. In his final home match at the Bernabeu, fans unfurled a massive banner reading "Gracias por tu magia," "Thank you for your magic." Rain fell lightly as he waved goodbye, tears glistening in his eyes. He embraced teammates and coaches, thanking them for their support. He kissed the pitch, whispered a prayer of gratitude, and walked down the tunnel one last time as a Real Madrid player. His exit was dignified, devoid of grand speeches, reflective of his personality. The years after leaving Madrid would see him return as an advisor, assistant manager, reserve team coach, and eventually first team manager. But as a player, his time in white established him as one of the club's all-time greats. Fans still chant his name when the clouds gather and the rain begins to fall at the Bernabeu, remembering the night in Glasgow and the countless touches that made them gasp. His presence lives on in the stadium's walls and in the hearts of those who witnessed his artistry. He remains, for many, the embodiment of the Galactico ethos, skill blended with humility, individual genius serving collective glory. The 2006 World Cup in Germany was, for Zinedine Zidane, a swan song that encapsulated the drama and dichotomies of his career. It began quietly and ended in a moment that would be replayed endlessly, debated by pundits and analyzed by psychologists. For months leading up to the tournament, he had announced his intention to retire from professional football once it concluded, signaling to fans that each match could be his last. France, under coach Raymond Domenech, entered the tournament with a mix of veterans and younger players, facing skepticism from media who believed their glory days were over. During the group stage, France struggled to find rhythm. Draws against Switzerland and South Korea left their progression uncertain. Zidane himself received yellow cards in both matches, prompting a suspension for the final group game against Togo. At the training base, he watched from the stands as his teammates secured qualification, the rain slicking his hair back as he clapped and shouted instructions. Perhaps a time away rekindled his focus, because from the knockout stages onwards, Zidane's performances resembled a man reliving his youth. Against Spain in the round of 16, he delivered an assist and scored a late goal, dancing through defenders on a wet pitch that glistened under floodlights. His celebration, arms outstretched and head tilted back, seemed less triumphant than grateful. In the quarter-final against Brazil, commentators hailed his display as a masterclass. He pirouetted with the ball, used the roulette move to evade Kaka, and delivered a free kick that Thierry Henry smashed into the net. Brazilian legends on the sidelines applauded, French fans in the stands, many wearing ponchos to protect against the intermittent drizzle, sang his name. In the semi-final against Portugal, he scored the only goal from the penalty spot, staring down goalkeeper Ricardo, waiting for the slightest movement before sending the ball the other way. Each match felt like a gift, an opportunity to witness artistry under pressure. The final, however, became infamous for its conclusion, rather than the football preceding it. On July 9, 2006, France and Italy met in Berlin's Olympiastadion. The air was heavy, threatening rain. Early in the match, France earned a penalty. Zidane approached, his steps measured. He chipped the ball, a panenka, and watched as it struck the underside of the bar, bouncing over the line. It was audacious and sublime. Italy equalized through Materazzi's header, and the match became tense. For nearly 80 minutes, neither side could break the deadlock. Zidane continued to orchestrate, drawing fouls and passing elegantly. In the 10th minute, the drama unfolded. Words were exchanged between Zidane and Marco Materazzi as they walked upfield. Materazzi later admitted to insulting Zidane's sister. In a moment of red-hot emotion, Zidane stopped, turned, and drove his head into Materazzi's chest. The Italian fell. The referee, after consulting his assistant and seeing the replay on the big screen, produced a red card. Zidane's face revealed a mixture of anger and regret. He walked toward the sideline, passing by the World Cup trophy. Rain began to fall lightly, creating a haunting visual as droplets caught the lights. His departure felt like the closing of a curtain on a Greek tragedy. Without him, France went on to lose in a penalty shootout. The aftermath was polarizing. Some condemned his action as petulant, unsportsmanlike, and unworthy of a captain. Others, especially in France and Algeria, defended him, arguing that his dignity had been attacked and that in the heat of the moment he had reacted as any person might when family is insulted. French newspapers displayed headlines like "Un geste de trop," one gesture too many, a "Merci Zizou," a juxtaposition of disapproval and gratitude. He returned home to find a nation still in love with him, forgiving of his flaw, more interested in honoring his entire career than dwelling on one moment. On the balcony of the Hôtel de Ville in Paris, he addressed thousands of fans in pouring rain, apologizing for letting them down, but expressing no regret for defending his family's honor. The crowd chanted his name in solidarity. Years later, Zidane reflected on the incident with candor. In interviews, he explained that Materazzi's words had been deeply offensive, that he had asked the Italian to stop several times, and that he had finally lost control. He admitted his mistake, acknowledging that he should not have reacted physically. He also maintained that he could not promise he would act differently if placed in the same situation. His honesty resonated with many. Psychologists analyzed the headbutt as a release of years of pent-up pressure, triggered by an insult that struck at his family's honor. Fans debated whether a single act should tarnish a legacy built over decades. Most concluded that it simply humanized him, reminding the world that even the most graceful among us are flawed. The headbutt also became a cultural reference point. Cartoonists depicted it humorously in comic strips, advertisers referenced it in campaigns, artists created sculptures capturing the moment. Discussions about provocation, respect, and sportsmanship proliferated. On football pitches around the world, children imitated the move in jest, while coaches used the incident as a teaching moment about emotional control. In academic circles, essays were written exploring masculinity, honor, and cultural differences in sport. For Zidane, the event remained a scar, but also a lesson he carried into his coaching career. Emotions must be acknowledged and managed, and players need spaces to express frustrations constructively. When he coached, he often pulled players aside to discuss feelings and to emphasize that maintaining focus under provocation was part of the game. Ultimately, the 2006 World Cup final added complexity to his story, ensuring it would be remembered not as a straightforward tale of triumph, but as a narrative rich with human texture. It reminded the world that beneath the polished surface of professional sport lie raw emotions and personal histories. It challenged fans to reconcile admiration with disappointment, to recognize that heroes can falter yet still inspire. As rain continues to fall on nights when his story is told, the image of him walking past the trophy in Berlin lingers, a poignant symbol of the interplay between greatness and imperfection. Off the pitch, Zidane's life is defined by generosity and a deep sense of responsibility towards those less fortunate. He often speaks of gratitude for the opportunities football provided and emphasizes that, had circumstances been slightly different, his life could have followed a very different path. This awareness fuels his philanthropic work. In the early 2000s, he began collaborating with the European Leukodystrophy Association, ELA, a charity that supports families affected by leukodystrophies, rare genetic disorders that deteriorate the nervous system. What began as occasional appearances evolved into a long-term commitment. Zidane reads dictation passages in schools each year for ELA's Dicte Dele campaign, turning an ordinary classroom exercise into a moment of solidarity. He encourages children to think of peers who cannot attend school due to illness, to write words like courage and hope with intention. He has climbed Mont Blanc, parachuted from planes, and fronted auctions to raise funds, all while emphasizing that collective action can change lives. In 2001, he was appointed a Goodwill Ambassador for the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP. This role allowed him to leverage his fame to highlight global poverty and promote the Millennium Development Goals. Alongside Brazilian striker Ronaldo, he organized matches against poverty, exhibition games featuring retired and active stars. One match in Fez, Morocco, saw him captain a team of legends against Ronaldo's team, raising funds for flood victims and development projects in North Africa. As he took to the pitch in his old boots, his sons watched from the stands, learning that football could be a tool for social change. After the match, he spoke to local media about his Algerian roots and his joy in returning to North Africa. The event was more than a spectacle, it was a celebration of solidarity. Zidane also supports Le Pot Rose, an association dedicated to helping families with terminally ill children. His involvement is intimate and personal. He visits bereaved parents, sits with them, listens to their stories, and offers comfort. He participates in fundraising dinners and auctions, often donating personal items like signed jerseys or meeting sponsors to secure donations. His presence brings attention to a subject many prefer to avoid, shining light on the need for better palliative care and support networks. In interviews, he speaks gently about the dignity of these families and the courage of children facing illness. Rain is often falling during these visits, he notes, as if the sky shares in the sadness and also in the cleansing healing process. Another major initiative close to his heart is his charitable foundation in Algeria. Using money earned from promotional work for the 2022 World Cup bid, he channeled millions of euros into projects that provide food, healthcare and educational resources to underprivileged communities in Kabylie and beyond. The foundation, run with his father, collaborates with local NGOs to identify families in need. They sponsor the construction of wells, purchase school supplies and fund scholarships for university students. He has also lent his support to Les Enfants du Désert, Children of the Desert, a charity that delivers supplies to remote Saharan villages. When asked why he invests so much in a country he did not grow up in, he replies that identity is multifaceted and that supporting one's heritage fosters pride and unity. In 2024, he took on the role of ambassador for an auction organized by Christie's to benefit ELA, headlining Watches for ELA, where luxury timepieces were sold to support research. Standing at a podium in a crisp suit, he charmed the audience with anecdotes, joked about his own punctuality, and encouraged bidders to be generous. The event raised significant sums, demonstrating the power of combining high culture with charitable causes. He later remarked that he felt nervous at the auction, more so than in a Champions League final, because he wanted to ensure every lot fetched the highest possible price for the children and families counting on the funds. His philanthropy extends beyond structured organizations. Many stories circulate of his spontaneous kindness, paying for medical treatments for children he meets in hospitals, financing renovations of community football pitches in Marseille, and sending supplies to refugees. During the COVID-19 pandemic, he donated thousands of masks and protective equipment to hospitals in France and Algeria. He also recorded messages encouraging people to stay home and support healthcare workers. He acknowledges that fame gives him a platform, but emphasizes that everyone can help in their own way, whether by donating money, volunteering time, or simply offering kindness to neighbors. Through his charitable work, Zidane teaches his sons by example. When Enzo, Luca, Theo, and Elias accompany him to events, he introduces them to families, encourages them to help set tables or hand out flyers, and discusses with them the importance of giving. He wants them to grow up aware of their privilege and mindful of their ability to contribute. He also emphasizes that philanthropy should be dignified. Recipients should never feel pitied, but rather respected as equals. He often quotes his parents, "If you have more than you need, build a longer table, not a higher fence." This attitude permeates his public appearances and private actions, reinforcing the idea that greatness is measured not only by goals and trophies, but by the positive impact one has on the world. Zinedine Zidane's transition from playing to coaching was not inevitable but carefully considered. After retiring in 2006, he spent several years away from daily football routines, studying the game from a distance and indulging in family life. He accompanied his sons to training sessions, observed matches from stands, and slowly felt a pull back towards the pitch. In 2010, Florentino Perez invited him to serve as an advisor at Real Madrid. The role involved attending board meetings, scouting players, and acting as a bridge between the dressing room and the president. Zidane accepted, seeing it as a way to give back to the club that had given him much. He sat in offices adorned with trophies and talked with directors about the club's philosophy, emphasizing the need to balance commercial ambitions with sporting integrity. He also began his coaching badges, attending seminars, taking notes diligently, and exchanging ideas with other aspiring coaches. In the 2013-14 season, he became assistant coach to Carlo Ancelotti. Working under the experienced Italian allowed him to learn the nuances of training planning, match preparation, and man management. He watched Ancelotti handle egos, rotate squads, and maintain harmony in a locker room full of stars. During training, he ran drills focusing on ball control, quick passing, and finishing. He sometimes stepped in to demonstrate techniques, showing that despite retirement, his first touch remained impeccable. Players listened attentively when he spoke, partly due to his status and partly because of the clarity of his instructions. When Real Madrid won La Decima, their 10th Champions League title, Zidane celebrated with the team, but also reflected on the work behind the scenes that made victory possible. In June 2014, he took charge of Real Madrid Castilla, the club's reserve team. Coaching young players was a different challenge. These were adolescents and early 20s athletes eager for promotion to the first team. They admired Zidane but also needed guidance on basics, positioning, diet, dealing with media. He implemented structured training sessions with clear objectives. He emphasized technique, insisting that players master first-touch drills under pressure. He taught them to read games, to communicate with teammates, and to respect opponents. He held individual meetings asking about their goals and anxieties. He encouraged them to pursue education alongside football, aware of the sport's uncertainties. When results were inconsistent, as is common in developmental teams, he did not berate players but used mistakes as teaching tools. He guided them to the promotion playoffs, earning praise for his calm demeanor and educational approach. In January 2016, Real Madrid dismissed coach Rafael Benitez after a series of underwhelming performances. Perez appointed Zidane as head coach of the first team. The announcement triggered both excitement and doubt. Fans revered him but questioned whether he had enough experience. He met the squad in the dressing room, looked each player in the eye and said, "We'll work together, we'll respect each other, and we'll fight until the last minute." He focused on building trust. He held private talks with Cristiano Ronaldo and Sergio Ramos, asking them about their motivations and roles. He listened to their frustrations and ideas. He reintroduced rotational policies, ensuring players like Isco, James Rodriguez and Lucas Vazquez felt valued. He adjusted training intensity, opting for shorter, sharper sessions to keep legs fresh. Results were immediate. Real Madrid went on an unbeaten run and reached the Champions League final, defeating city rivals Atletico Madrid on penalties after a grueling match in Milan. Zidane celebrated with his players, lifting the trophy as a coach just as he had done as a player. His second season was even more successful. Real Madrid won La Liga for the first time in 5 years, finishing with a record number of points and goals, and retained the Champions League, dismantling Juventus 4-1 in the final with a performance marked by pace pressing and clinical finishing. The image of Zidane hugging his assistants in the rain at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff after the final whistle resonated with fans. He was living a dream within a dream. In 2017-18, he defied modern expectations by winning a third consecutive Champions League, defeating Liverpool in Kiev. The final was dramatic, featuring an early injury to Mohamed Salah, 2 goalkeeping errors by Loris Karius, and the stunning overhead kick by Gareth Bale. Zidane's tactical changes during the match, bringing on Bale at the right moment, proved decisive. In post-match interviews, he praised his players' mentality, crediting them for maintaining belief even when underdogs. Despite the triumph, he sensed a growing fatigue in the squad and tension with the club's hierarchy over transfer policies. In May 2018, he shocked the football world by resigning, explaining that the team needed a change to continue winning and that he needed rest. He left without bitterness, hugging players and staff, thanking them for their trust. Less than a year later, after an unsuccessful stint by his successor Real Madrid asked him to return, he accepted, driven by love for the club and the challenge of rebuilding a team in transition. He restructured the squad, integrating young players like Federico Valverde and Vinicius Jr., and experimented with formations. The 2019-20 season brought unique challenges due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Football shut down for months, and when it resumed, matches were played behind closed doors. Zidane adapted, implementing strict health protocols, adjusting training to small groups, and managing players' mental well-being. His calm leadership paid off. Real Madrid won La Liga, embarking on a 10-match winning streak after the restart. In his post-title speech, delivered under light rain that fell on the roof of the Valdebebas training complex, he said, "This is the most difficult league. I'm happier than with any Champions League because this title reflects our work every day." His players echoed those sentiments. In May 2021, after a season of near misses, he stepped down again. He later explained that he felt the club no longer trusted him fully and that he needed to step aside. He wrote a letter thanking fans and clarifying that he had given his all. He took time away from football, spending days with his family, traveling, reading and reflecting. Despite persistent rumors linking him to clubs and national teams, he remained patient. When asked if he wanted to coach France, he replied that his heart was open to the idea, but that timing mattered. He emphasized that he would only return when he felt a project aligned with his values and when he could give his energy fully. This measured approach reinforced his image as a man guided by intuition and principles, not by fame or financial incentive. One cannot appreciate Zidane fully without delving into his playing style and the training habits that underpinned it. From the outside, his movement seemed effortless, his control preternatural. Yet each feint, turn and pass was rooted in countless hours of practice. His style combined elements of street football with its emphasis on improvisation and professional discipline. Growing up in Castellane, he learned to manipulate the ball on uneven surfaces, using the soles of his feet to drag it away from opponents, shielding it with his body, and flicking it around corners. These skills translated into his iconic roulette move, where he would pivot on one foot while dragging the ball with the other, completing a full circle to evade a tackle. He did not invent the move, but he made it his own, performing it with such elegance that fans gasped and defenders groaned. Watching him play was like watching a dancer. He moved with an upright posture, his shoulders relaxed and his hips loose. His head was always up, scanning for runs, spaces and threats. He manipulated angles and timing, drawing players toward him before releasing a pass at the last possible second, creating space for teammates. His passes varied short, sharp exchanges, long diagonal balls that arced over defences, subtle through balls between centre-backs, delicate chips over goalkeepers. He used both feet seamlessly. If his right foot was associated with precision, his left foot delivered artistry, as seen in his volley in Glasgow. He rarely relied on brute force, instead he harnessed balance and timing. Behind the grace was relentless training. Former coaches recall him staying after practice to work on his touch, shooting and free kicks. He would ask goalkeepers to remain for extra sessions, instructing them to dive left or right as he practiced placing the ball in corners. He varied his approach, sometimes striking with power, sometimes with finesse, sometimes with the inside or outside of his boot. He believed repetition led to confidence, so that in a match he could trust his muscle memory and focus on decision making. He also practiced receiving passes at odd angles, controlling the ball with different parts of his body. He honed his spatial awareness by playing small-sided games in tight spaces, forcing him to think quickly and move the ball with minimal touches. Physical conditioning was another pillar. Though he was never the fastest, his acceleration over short distances and his stamina were crucial. He worked with fitness coaches to strengthen his legs and core, enabling him to resist challenges and maintain balance. He practiced plyometric drills, agility ladders, and sprints, often in the rain when conditions were slippery. He took recovery seriously, using ice baths, massages, and stretching routines to prevent injuries. He integrated practices from other disciplines, ballet exercises to improve flexibility and posture, yoga to enhance balance and breathing, and martial arts drills to refine coordination. He understood that his body was his instrument and treated it accordingly. Mentally, he prepared meticulously. Before matches, he visualized scenarios, receiving the ball in various parts of the field, anticipating defenders' moves, and executing passes. He meditated to quiet his mind and combat anxiety. In interviews, he revealed that he sometimes drifted into a trance-like state during games where noise faded and instinct took over. He loved playing in rain because it intensified his focus. The sensation of water on his skin grounded him. He read books on psychology and leadership to understand motivation and teamwork. He also watched countless hours of football footage, studying both opponents and legends of the past. He admired Johan Cruyff's vision, admired the dribbling of Diego Maradona, and analyzed the positioning of Franz Beckenbauer. He sought not to imitate, but to integrate lessons into his own style. As a coach, he passed on these habits to his players. He organized rondos, possession drills where players stand in a circle and keep the ball away from defenders to encourage quick passing and awareness. He introduced ballet-inspired warm-ups to improve balance and reduce injury risk. He emphasized mental preparation, encouraging players to keep personal journals, practice mindfulness, and visualize games. He banned mobile phones during team meals, urging players to engage with each other and build chemistry. He understood that even in an era of analytics and gadgets, human connection and trust remained essential. Critics sometimes argued that his style was too elegant, lacking the grit needed for certain matches. But those who played with or against him testify that behind the elegance was toughness. He did not shy away from duels. He used his elbows, shoulders, and body to protect the ball. He absorbed kicks and kept going. He tracked back to defend and tackled when necessary. He encouraged younger players to combine beauty and bite, to understand that football required both. He told them that sometimes the rain was pouring and the pitch was muddy, and in those moments the refined touch had to coexist with determination. His playing style influenced generations. Midfielders like Andres Iniesta and Luka Modric cite him as an inspiration, admiring his ability to slow the game down, to demand the ball under pressure, and to make the extraordinary look simple. Coaches have used videos of him to teach technique and decision-making. Fans still attempt his roulette in parks and on beaches, slipping on wet sand as they spin. In retirement, Zidane has occasionally joined charity matches, and while his speed has diminished, his touch and vision remain sharp, drawing applause from spectators. His style, born on a rain-slicked square in Marseille, refined on training grounds across Europe, and displayed on the world's biggest stages, continues to evoke awe. Family forms the bedrock of Zidane's life, shaping his values, grounding him in moments of triumph, and sustaining him through adversity. His parents, Smail and Malika, instilled in him the principles of hard work, humility, and solidarity. They immigrated from Kabylie to France with little more than their hopes and determination, settling in La Castellane. Their stories of leaving behind familiar landscapes, facing discrimination, and carving out a new life in a foreign land influenced young Zinedine's worldview. He remembers his mother cooking meals for neighbors during Ramadan, his father working night shifts so that his children could focus on school and play. He also recalls how his parents insisted on respect for elders, for teachers, for peers, regardless of background. As Zinedine grew older and built a family of his own, he carried these lessons forward. He and Veronique became parents to 4 sons, each bringing distinct personalities and dreams. Enzo, the eldest, was born in 1995 and inherited his father's love for midfield play. He joined Real Madrid's youth system and later played for various clubs across Europe before retiring in 2024. Luka, born in 1998, chose to become a goalkeeper, perhaps subconsciously attracted to a role opposite his father's. He trained with Real Madrid, played for the reserve team, and later moved to Granada. In 2025, he made headlines by switching international allegiance from France to Algeria, honoring his heritage and earning his first call-up to the Algerian national team. Theo, born in 2002, plays as a midfielder, while Elias, born in 2005, operates as a defender. All 4 brothers share a bond forged in backyard games, training sessions, and conversations around the dinner table. Zidane and Veronique have nurtured their sons with care, balancing encouragement with protection. They never pushed them into football, but allowed them to discover the game organically. They emphasized education, insisting that schoolwork come first. They attended parent-teacher meetings, volunteered at school events, and reminded their children that intelligence extends beyond sports. At home, rules were simple, dinners were shared, phones were kept away, and everyone participated in chores. Even as wealth allowed them to have help, they taught their children to respect domestic workers and to be self-sufficient. They celebrated birthdays with homemade cakes, not lavish parties, and spent holidays visiting grandparents rather than exclusive resorts. When the boys faced challenges, their parents offered guidance. Enzo struggled with comparisons to his father. Journalists often asked if he would ever reach the same heights. Zinedine told him that his only obligation was to be the best version of himself. He encouraged Enzo to find joy in the game, to measure success not in trophies but in personal growth. When Luca moved to Granada and faced criticism for his performances, Zinedine called him daily, reminding him that mistakes were part of learning and that goalkeepers often matured later. When Theo and Elias navigated adolescence, he listened more than he lectured, creating an environment where they felt safe to share fears and dreams. He was not immune to worry. He once admitted that watching his sons play caused him more anxiety than playing himself, but he trusted them and allowed them to carve their own paths. Beyond his immediate family, Zidane maintains close ties with his siblings. He has 3 brothers and 1 sister, each with their own careers and families. They gather regularly, often at their parents' home in Marseille or at the family's farm in Aveyron. These reunions are filled with laughter, teasing, and debate. They grill meat outdoors, vegetables sizzling in olive oil, and recall childhood adventures. They watch old home videos, noticing how rain seemed to appear in many of their celebrations, as if the weather itself were a family member. They support each other, whether through attending each other's children's school plays or lending a hand during illness. He values these bonds as reminders of where he comes from and as anchors in the fluid world of professional sports. Family also extends to the communities that have embraced him. In La Castellane, he remains Yazid, the boy who played barefoot in the square. He funds the renovation of playgrounds, sponsors after-school programs, and visits young players to offer advice. He attends weddings and funerals, maintaining a presence in the neighborhood that shaped him. In Aveyron, where Veronique's relatives live, he invests in Rodez Aveyron football, saving the club from financial troubles and ensuring that local children have role models to look up to. In Italy and Spain, he stays connected with the families of former teammates, exchanging gifts during the holidays and attending celebrations when he can. In interviews, he often says that family is his greatest success. Trophies tarnish, headlines fade, but the love and respect of family endure. When his sons achieve something, he celebrates quietly at home, perhaps with a special meal or a movie night. When they face setbacks, he offers perspective, reminding them of their grandparents' sacrifices and of the millions of children who dream of opportunities. He tells them that fame is transient and that character is built in how one treats others when the spotlight is off. These lessons, learned under the gentle patter of rain on windowsills, define him more than any goal or victory. Zidane's identity is woven from threads of multiple cultures and experiences. Born in Marseille to parents from Kabylie, he grew up navigating French society while retaining a strong connection to his Berber heritage. His first language at home was a mixture of Algerian Arabic and the Berber dialect of Kabyle, while at school he learned French. His cuisine included both couscous and baguette, his music, both raï and chanson, his stories, both Algerian folk tales and French fairy tales. This duality enriched his worldview and provided him with empathy toward those who straddle cultures. He often describes himself as both French and Kabyle, refusing to see the identities as mutually exclusive. He feels deeply French, grateful to the country that offered his family refuge and the chance to succeed. Yet he feels equally attached to Algeria, where his ancestors lived and where extended family remains. Growing up in La Castellane, he experienced prejudice firsthand. Teachers sometimes underestimated him because of his background. Shopkeepers sometimes followed him around suspiciously. Opponents on the field occasionally directed slurs at him. These experiences could have hardened him, but he channeled them into motivation. He vowed to prove doubters wrong through excellence. He also developed a sensitivity to the struggles of immigrants and minorities, which later influenced his philanthropic work and public statements. When he lifted the World Cup in 1998, he knew that many children of immigrants saw themselves in him. He became a symbol of multicultural France, challenging narratives that framed diversity as a threat. His refusal to coach Algeria, despite numerous offers, stems not from rejection but from respect for his chosen national identity. He explains that he feels French in the sporting context because France nurtured his talent and because he owes his footballing career to French institutions. Coaching France, he says, would be the ultimate honor. Yet his love for Algeria remains strong. He visits regularly, walking through villages in Kabylie, meeting relatives, and exploring landscapes his parents described. He watches Algerian football matches and celebrates the national team's successes. He advocates for cooperation between France and Algeria, believing that cultural exchange can heal historical wounds. In Spain and Italy, he embraced local cultures without losing himself. He spoke Italian fluently within months of arriving in Turin, allowing him to engage with fans and read newspapers. He celebrated Italian festivals, learned local recipes, and integrated his family into community life. In Spain, he danced to sevillanas, spoke Spanish with a French accent that endeared him to locals, and followed local traditions like siesta and late dinners. He taught his sons that adaptability is a strength, that one can feel at home in multiple places, and that identity is not static but a mosaic of experiences. Public discourse often tries to pigeonhole him, to make him choose between being French and Algerian, between being European and North African. Zidane rejects binary thinking. He often quotes his father, who told him, "We have two homes, but our heart has enough room for both." When journalists ask if he feels more French after 1998, he replies that he has always felt French and that his love for Algeria does not diminish that. He sees himself as a bridge, someone who can speak to different communities and advocate for understanding. He encourages young people to take pride in their heritage while participating fully in the societies they live in. His multicultural identity influences his outlook on leadership and teamwork. He understands that players come from different backgrounds with varied life experiences that affect their behavior. He makes an effort to learn about his players' cultures, whether by tasting their traditional foods, learning phrases in their languages, or celebrating their holidays. He remembers that when he arrived at Cannes, a coach took the time to learn about Algeria, making him feel welcome. He replicates that inclusivity, creating an environment where everyone feels valued. He also challenges stereotypes, refusing to define players by their ethnicity or religion. He judges them by their work ethic, attitude, and commitment to the group. Zidane's identity journey reflects broader themes of migration, integration, and belonging. In his story, we see the possibility of embracing multiple cultures without conflict, of succeeding in a society that sometimes doubts you, and of using that success to advocate for inclusivity. When rain falls and his story is told, it evokes the idea that identities, like raindrops, merge and separate, reflect light differently, yet ultimately return to the same sea. His life invites us to reconsider rigid categories and to see identity as fluid, dynamic, and enriched by diversity. Speculation about Zidane's future has become a perennial pastime for journalists and fans. After each season that passes without him on the touchline, rumors multiply. In 2025, reports emerged that he was in talks to succeed Didier Deschamps as coach of the French national team after the 2026 World Cup. Newspapers cited unnamed sources claiming that he had been attending Ligue 1 matches incognito, taking notes, and meeting with French Football Federation officials. Sports programs debated the pros and cons of his potential appointment. Supporters argued that his calm demeanor, experience, and multicultural background made him an ideal leader for a team reflecting France's diversity. Others worried that his reputation could be tarnished if results were not immediate. In parallel, there had been whispers about a return to Juventus, where fans still chant his name and dream of seeing him guide a new generation of bianconeri. Pundits suggest that his understanding of the club's culture and his ability to balance defense and creativity could restore Juventus to European glory. Yet the Italian press also notes that his coaching style might clash with Serie A's current pragmatism, and that modern Juventus operates differently than in the 1990s. The speculation extends to Paris Saint-Germain, where the lure of coaching a star-studded squad and living in his home country is obvious. Some see him as the only coach capable of managing the egos of superstars like Kylian Mbappe and the ever-changing dynamics of a club with ambitious Qatari owners. Others caution that PSG's structure, with directors heavily involved in football decisions, might not align with Zidane's desire for autonomy. There are also suggestions of roles beyond coaching. Some analysts propose that he might take up a director of football position, overseeing recruitment and long-term planning, rather than day-to-day training. His ability to spot talent, understand player psychology, and communicate across languages could make him valuable in such a role. In 2026, rumors circulated that he had been approached by clubs in Major League Soccer and by national federations outside Europe, offering him lucrative contracts to develop football programs. Friends close to him whisper that he contemplates stepping away from the limelight entirely to focus on his foundation, perhaps opening an academy in Algeria or France that combines football training with education and social development. Zidane himself remains enigmatic. When reporters corner him at public events, he smiles and deflects. He says he is enjoying time with his family, attending his son's matches, reading and engaging in his charity work. He insists that he will return to coaching only when the project feels right, when he senses hunger in himself and trust from the institution. He recalls his father's advice to never accept a job solely for money or prestige, but to seek meaning. He values autonomy and clarity of vision. He wants to work with people who share his respect for players and for the game itself. He is aware that his reputation gives him leverage. He need not rush. He is also conscious that prolonged absence could make it harder to return at the highest level. He balances these considerations quietly, listening to his intuition. Speculation will continue until he makes a definitive move. Until then, fans and analysts will pore over his public appearances, reading significance into which matches he attends and whom he speaks to. They will watch the rain at stadiums where he is spotted, interpreting it as a metaphor for the suspense around his future. They will recall that his life has always been marked by thoughtful decisions rather than impulsive reactions. Whether he ends up leading France to glory, guiding Juventus back to the summit, reshaping PSG, or forging a new path entirely, his choice will be measured and deeply considered. For now, the uncertainty adds another layer to his mystique, prompting reflections not only on his past, but on the possibilities that await. Zidane's influence extends far beyond the goals he scored or the trophies he won. He has shaped how players see themselves and their potential, how coaches manage teams, and how fans appreciate the interplay between art and sport. He embodies a leadership style that combines humility with authority. When he speaks, he does so softly, yet his words carry weight. He does not berate players in public, instead addressing issues privately. He praises staff members, from physiotherapists to kit managers, reminding the world that success is a collective endeavour. This approach fosters loyalty. Players run harder and focus more when they feel valued and respected. His presence in the dressing room, both as a player and as a coach, creates calm. Teammates describe how he would enter silently, sit down, tie his boots, and exude a serenity that spread to others. Before important matches, he would tell stories or jokes to diffuse tension. He often referenced his early days in La Castellane, reminding colleagues that pressure on a football pitch paled in comparison to the pressures of life outside. As a coach, he continued this approach, urging players to enjoy the privilege of playing rather than fearing failure. He emphasized that mistakes were part of the game and that courage lay in trying again. He also asked players to support each other, to celebrate each goal as if they had all scored it, and to defend as if their own goal were at stake. Zidane's influence is visible in the rise of multi-talented midfielders who blend technical ability with physical resilience. Players like Paul Pogba, Toni Kroos, and Kevin De Bruyne cite him as a role model. Pogba, who grew up in the Paris suburb of Lagny-sur-Marne and shares a similar immigrant background, often replicates Zidane's roulette and speaks of his desire to merge flair with efficiency. Kroos admires Zidane's vision and uses video clips to refine his own passing. De Bruyne notes how Zidane controlled games with minimal touches, inspiring him to simplify his own play. These tributes demonstrate that influence transcends national boundaries and generations. In coaching circles, his success with Real Madrid has challenged assumptions about what makes a good manager. Critics once dismissed him as a figurehead who relied on the talents of his players. Yet his 3 consecutive Champions League titles forced a re-evaluation. Analysts now highlight his ability to manage egos, to make subtle tactical adjustments during matches, and to create a positive atmosphere. Coaches like Mikel Arteta and Xabi Alonso have publicly praised his man management skills, citing his decision to rotate Cristiano Ronaldo in certain games as evidence of courage and foresight. His influence encourages clubs to consider personality and emotional intelligence alongside tactical knowledge when hiring managers. Beyond football, artists and writers draw inspiration from his story. Poets use him as a symbol of grace under pressure. Musicians compose songs about his journey. Painters depict his moments of brilliance in abstract colours. Sociologists analyse his impact on multicultural integration in France. His leadership style is studied in business schools, where professors emphasise the value of empathy, vulnerability, and quiet confidence. His ability to transform a team of stars into a cohesive unit is likened to orchestra conductors balancing virtuosos to produce harmony. Young fans see in Zidane a blueprint for navigating adversity. They learn from his humility. He seldom celebrates goals with extravagance, instead offering a discreet fist pump or a nod. They learn from his resilience. After public mistakes, he returns stronger, never letting a single event define him. They learn from his philanthropy that success is hollow if not shared. They learn from his multicultural identity that one can carry multiple identities without conflict. They learn from his retirement decisions that stepping back can be as courageous as pushing forward. He teaches that greatness is not measured solely by medals, but by character, influence, and the lives one touches. In lectures or quiet conversations, Zidane sometimes attributes his leadership philosophy to lessons he absorbed as a child. He recalls his father's insistence on fairness. If one son received a new pair of shoes, the others would soon get theirs. He recalls a sense of justice in Kabyle culture. where disputes were settled with respect for elders' wisdom. He recalls his mother's patience, her ability to listen without judgment. These influences, combined with experiences across clubs and cultures, inform his approach to leadership: balanced, empathetic, disciplined, and deeply human. Behind every moment of brilliance in Zidane's career lies a foundation of rigorous work ethic and carefully crafted routines. Contrary to the myth of the naturally gifted player who relies solely on instinct, Zidane understands that talent must be honed through repetition and discipline. His daily schedule during his playing days often began with sunrise runs along beaches or through parks, regardless of weather. The sound of rain hitting leaves or waves crashing against the shore served as a metronome for his strides. He considered these runs meditative, a time to clear his mind and visualize his goals for the day. At training, he arrived early to warm up thoroughly, focusing on joint mobility and muscle activation. He performed dynamic stretches and core exercises to prepare his body for intense activity. He practiced dribbling through cones with both feet, deliberately using his weaker left foot more often to improve symmetry. He executed passing drills while wearing a blindfold, guided only by the voices of teammates, to sharpen spatial awareness. He trained free kicks by setting targets in the top corners of the goal and aiming for them repeatedly until muscle memory developed. He often stayed after official training sessions to practice penalties, telling goalkeepers to surprise him with different moves. He believed that confidence from practice translated into calmness under match pressure. Nutrition formed another pillar of his routine. He consulted with dietitians to design meals that fueled performance and recovery. He ate balanced portions of lean protein, complex carbohydrates, and healthy fats. He enjoyed couscous and vegetables, grilled fish drizzled with olive oil, and fresh fruit. He drank plenty of water and limited sugary beverages. On match days, his pre-game meal might include chicken, rice, and steamed vegetables, eaten at specific times to ensure digestion and energy alignment. He avoided alcohol during the season and emphasized portion control. He allowed himself small indulgences, a piece of dark chocolate or a pastry, believing that moderation prevented cravings. Rest and recovery were equally important. He maintained a consistent sleep schedule, going to bed early and waking up naturally, even after night matches. He incorporated naps into his day, especially before evening games, to refresh his mind and body. He practiced deep breathing and progressive muscle relaxation to facilitate sleep, particularly when adrenaline might otherwise keep him awake. He used stretching and yoga sessions to maintain flexibility, preventing muscle tightness that could lead to injury. He also embraced cold water immersion and contrast baths to reduce inflammation. He listened to his body's signals and communicated with medical staff about any discomfort, understanding that early intervention prevented long-term issues. Mental routines anchored his performance. He kept a journal where he recorded training details, match reflections, and personal thoughts. He wrote about what went well, what needed improvement, and how he felt emotionally. He used positive affirmations, reminding himself of his abilities and his preparation. He engaged in breathing exercises before matches, inhaling slowly through his nose and exhaling through pursed lips, focusing on the sensation of air filling his lungs. He practiced mindfulness meditation, sitting quietly and bringing attention to the present moment, letting thoughts pass without judgment. These practices helped him stay composed under pressure and recover from mistakes quickly. When he transitioned to coaching, he maintained a disciplined routine. He arrived at training grounds before players to set up drills and to review tactical plans. He studied opponents meticulously, analyzing patterns, strengths, and weaknesses. He planned sessions with clear objectives, ensuring balance between physical conditioning, tactical awareness, and technical refinement. He read extensively, not only about football tactics, but also about psychology, leadership, and nutrition. He believed that a coach should be a lifelong learner, open to new ideas and willing to adapt. He exercised regularly, joining players in warm-ups or fitness sessions to stay connected to the physical demands of the sport. He continued journaling, reflecting on training sessions and matches, noting what adjustments were effective and where improvements were needed. Zidane's routines illustrate that success is not accidental. They demonstrate that behind the serene demeanor and effortless play lies discipline, curiosity, and self-awareness. They teach aspiring athletes that mastery requires dedication to details, from the foods one eats to the thoughts one cultivates. They also highlight the importance of balance. He knows when to push himself and when to rest, when to focus and when to relax. He sees his routines not as restrictive but as liberating, providing a structure that allows creativity to flourish within. As rain falls outside his window and he prepares for his next chapter, these habits remain with him, guiding his days and ensuring that whatever he undertakes, he does so with purpose and care. While his most famous matches are well documented, Zidane's career is filled with lesser-known games that reveal his resilience and adaptability. In January 1997, Juventus faced Milan in a Serie A match at San Siro. The night was cold and damp, the pitch slick. Early in the second half, Juventus earned a free kick about 25 metres from goal. The wall was formidable and goalkeeper Sebastiano Rossi stood poised. Zidane surveyed the scene, adjusted his run-up and struck the ball with the inside of his foot. It curled over the wall and dipped just under the crossbar. Rossi leapt but could not reach it. The goal silenced the Milan faithful and gave Juventus a crucial victory. It was a demonstration of technique under adverse conditions, the ball's flight traced by droplets of rain. Another memorable performance came in April 2003, when Real Madrid visited Manchester United in the Champions League quarter-final second leg. Madrid had won the first leg 3-1, with Zidane instrumental. The return match at Old Trafford, under persistent rain, was hailed as a clash of titans. Brazilian striker Ronaldo stole the headlines with a hat-trick, but Zidane's control of midfield was equally vital. He played passes with the outside of his boot, dribbled away from Paul Scholes and Roy Keane, and calmly evaded tackles. At one point he dragged the ball back with his studs, pivoted and lofted a pass to Figo, all while 3 red jerseys converged. Fans gave Ronaldo a standing ovation when he was substituted, but many also applauded Zidane's artistry. Madrid lost the match 4-3 but advanced on aggregate. Afterwards, Alex Ferguson remarked that Zidane had run the show. Euro 2004 presented another example of his resilience. France faced England in the group stage at Estádio da Luz in Lisbon. With time running out, England led 1-0 through a Frank Lampard header. In the 90th minute, France earned a free kick just outside the penalty area. Zidane stepped up and curled the ball over the wall, past David James, tying the game. Moments later, Thierry Henry was fouled in the box, and France won a penalty. Zidane took it despite fatigue and the pressure of stoppage time. He drove the ball into the corner, giving France a 2-1 victory. Commentators called it Zidane's 5 minutes, a testament to his ability to seize critical moments. In 2002, during a Champions League semi-final against Barcelona, he scored at Camp Nou, a feat not often accomplished by visiting players. The atmosphere was intense. Rain fell lightly on the Catalan crowd. Midway through the first half, he received a pass from Roberto Carlos, glided past defender Carles Puyol, and slipped the ball under goalkeeper Roberto Bonanno. Madrid won 2-0, and the goal became another highlight of his European repertoire. Years later he said that scoring at Camp Nou felt special because of the rivalry's history and the difficulty of playing there. Another match, less remembered but important, occurred in 2011. long after his retirement when he joined a charity game in Kuwait. The match raised funds for children's hospitals and featured legends like Ronaldinho and Luis Figo. Zidane, despite being in his late 30s, displayed flashes of his old brilliance, performing the roulette move to dribble past opponents, hitting crossfield passes with precision and scoring a goal from the edge of the box. The crowd, many of whom had only seen him on television, erupted. For them, this exhibition in the desert rain, the pitch sprayed with water to cope with heat, was a dream come true. Zidane smiled throughout, reminding himself and others that joy in football transcends competition. Each of these matches contributed to his aura as a player who could rise to any occasion and adapt to different conditions. They show that while his career is often defined by finals, his consistency in less heralded games built his reputation. They reveal a player who refused to let weather, venue, or context diminish his performance. They invite fans to explore beyond famous highlights and appreciate the craft and resilience displayed week after week. For Zidane, every match, whether in front of thousands or in a charity game, deserved respect and effort, because every time he stepped onto the field, he honored the child who once played in a rain-soaked square in Marseille. Zidane often speaks in metaphors drawn from nature, art, and philosophy. His worldview reflects a blend of Western rationalism and Eastern mysticism, shaped by his diverse heritage and by mentors encountered along the way. He believes that football, like life, is a continuous journey of learning and adaptation. He cites the philosopher Albert Camus, who once said that everything he learned about morality, he learned from football. Zidane interprets this as meaning that on the pitch, one confronts choices that reveal character. Do you help an opponent who falls? Do you pass or dribble? Do you keep composure under provocation? He draws inspiration from dance, particularly the flamenco and Ryan-fused dance moves, Veronique practices. Observing dancers, he sees parallels in timing, rhythm, and trust. Dancers must anticipate partners' movements, much like footballers anticipate teammates. He appreciates that both disciplines demand hours of repetitive practice to make movements appear effortless. He sometimes asks players to watch dance performances or practice basic steps to cultivate grace. He also encourages players to listen to music from different cultures, arguing that varied rhythms can spark creativity on the pitch. Zidane emphasizes the importance of humility. He recalls a Kabyle proverb, "The tree laden with fruit bows its branches lower." The message is clear: the more one has, the more modest one should be. He sees arrogance as a sign of insecurity, while humility reflects confidence. He urges players to celebrate quietly, to shake hands with opponents, to thank fans. He sees football as a universal language that can bridge divides if spoken with respect. He also warns against complacency. He tells players that being talented is like owning a garden. Without constant tending, weeds will grow. He advises them to water their skills with practice, to fertilize their minds with knowledge, and to prune bad habits. He values patience. In a world where instant gratification is prized, he reminds players that careers unfold over decades. He compares progress to rain-nourishing seeds. Just as seeds need time and consistent moisture to grow into trees, players need time and consistent effort to mature. He shares stories of his own career, how he was rejected by some clubs, how he faced injuries, how he considered quitting. He explains that perseverance often precedes breakthroughs. He cautions against chasing hype, emphasizing that true success is built quietly, away from cameras, in hours of training and study. To Zidane, balance is essential. He views the world as composed of complementary forces, attack and defense, joy and sorrow, sun and rain. He tells players to embrace both sides, to understand that one cannot appreciate sunshine without experiencing rain. He applies this to tactics, balancing offensive freedom with defensive responsibility. He applies it to life, encouraging players to balance ambition with family, work with rest. He himself seeks equilibrium by gardening, painting, and spending time in nature. He finds solace in simple acts like planting tomatoes or drawing the outline of a mountain, focusing his mind and reconnecting with the earth. He also reflects on legacy. He acknowledges that while fame is temporary, the values one upholds endure. He wants to be remembered not just for goals or titles, but for kindness, humility, and integrity. He speaks about leaving the world better than he found it, whether through charity, coaching, or simply by being a good father and neighbor. He invites others to think about their own legacy, to ask what they will leave behind. He suggests that even small actions, helping a teammate up, donating to a cause, listening to someone's story, ripple outward. He uses the image of raindrops forming rivers to illustrate how individual acts combine to create powerful currents of change. In conversations about faith, he is private but sincere. He identifies as Muslim, having been raised in a household where prayers punctuated daily routines. He says his faith gives him inner peace and perspective, reminding him of life's greater purpose. He respects other religions and encourages interfaith dialogue. He often visits mosques quietly without publicity to pray and to find tranquility. He believes that spirituality, however one defines it, anchors individuals in storms. He sometimes reads verses from the Quran to his sons, discussing themes of compassion, gratitude, and resilience. He finds comfort in the cadence of recitation, much like the sound of rain that has accompanied so many of his life's pivotal moments. Interactions with fans are an integral part of Zidane's public life, and he approaches them with the same authenticity that characterizes his play. He remembers vividly the thrill of meeting his idols as a child when he encountered Jean-Pierre Papin at a charity event in Marseille. His hands trembled and his voice cracked. Papin's smile and kind words left a lasting impression. Now, when fans approach him, whether in airports, restaurants, or the street, he sees his younger self in their eyes. He stops, listens, and engages. He asks their names, signs memorabilia, and poses for photos. He avoids rushing through interactions because he understands that these moments can inspire and comfort people. At stadiums, he often stays long after matches to sign jerseys and programs, even when rain pours and security personnel urge him to leave. He gestures to fans on crutches, ensures they receive autographs, and sometimes invites them onto the pitch to take pictures. He has arranged for fans with disabilities to watch training sessions from accessible platforms, meeting them afterwards. He partners with organizations that provide tickets to underprivileged children, hoping to create memories that fuel dreams. When he coached Real Madrid, he invited fans to open training sessions, allowing them to see the human side of their heroes and to feel part of the journey. On social media, he is selective but genuine. He posts messages supporting causes, celebrating team victories, and sharing glimpses of family life. He avoids controversial statements, focusing instead on positivity and gratitude. He reads comments occasionally, noting patterns and concerns, but he avoids getting drawn into debates. He has said that real connections happen face-to-face, where tone and body language convey sincerity. That is why he prefers to visit schools, hospitals, and community centers in person to shake hands, share smiles, and listen to stories. His interaction with fans goes beyond public appearances. He responds to letters sent to the clubs he works with, especially those from children. He once received a drawing from a 9-year-old boy who had lost his father and found solace in watching Zidane's videos. Zidane wrote back, offering condolences and encouraging the boy to keep drawing and dreaming. He included a signed photo and a promise to meet if the boy's family could attend a match. Months later, the meeting happened. The boy wore a raincoat because it was drizzling, and they spoke about art, football, and memory. Zidane felt humbled by the courage of someone so young. He also maintains boundaries. He shields his family from intrusive publicity. He declines offers that would commodify his children's lives or turn private moments into marketing material. He tells fans that his sons deserve anonymity at times, the freedom to play without constant comparison. He shares glimpses of family only when appropriate, respecting the autonomy of his loved ones. He believes that his fans are understanding and appreciates their respect. Many fans reciprocate his kindness with gestures of their own. They send handmade gifts, knitted scarves, painted portraits, letters written in careful cursive. They bring North African pastries to training grounds, insisting he taste them. They compose songs about him, some humorous, others touching. He keeps many of these tokens in his home office, alongside trophies and awards. He says that they remind him of the human connection at the heart of sport. When he has difficult days, he opens letters and reads messages of encouragement, drawing strength from the community he has helped create. The relationship between Zidane and his supporters is not a one-way street. He acknowledges that fans invest time, money and emotion into football, and he feels a duty to reciprocate with honesty and respect. He does not take their support for granted. When teams he coaches perform poorly, he apologizes and explains, rather than hiding behind cliches. When they win, he thanks supporters sincerely. When he receives personal awards, he dedicates them to fans, reminding them that without their belief, the achievements would be hollow. The trust built through these interactions endures, evidenced by the unwavering chants of Zizou that rise in stadiums whenever he is present, rain or shine. Mentors play a crucial role in shaping any athlete's journey, and Zidane's story is enriched by the influence of various coaches and elders who guided his development. At AS Cannes, Jean Varot was the first to recognize his potential. Varot's coaching style was a blend of strictness and compassion. He treated teenage players as adults, expecting discipline in training, but also fostering a familial environment. He told Zidane that talent was a gift, but that humility was a choice. He insisted on punctuality, proper nutrition, and respect for kitmen and cooks. He also encouraged creativity, allowing Zidane to express himself on the pitch without fear of reprimand for trying a new dribble or pass. Varot's balanced approach gave young Zinedine the confidence to explore his abilities within a supportive structure. At Bordeaux, Roland Courbis and later Gernot Rohr became significant mentors. Courbis had a charismatic personality and a knack for simplifying complex tactics. He would gather players around a whiteboard, draw diagrams with thick markers, and animate plays with gestures and sound effects. Zidane appreciated his ability to explain the reasoning behind formations and to involve players in decision-making. Rohr, on the other hand, emphasized physical conditioning and mental resilience. He organized team-building activities outside training, like rafting trips and cooking competitions, where players bonded over laughter and friendly rivalry. Rohr's belief in the importance of unity resonated with Zidane, who had experienced similar camaraderie in street football. Together, these coaches instilled in him the idea that football intelligence is nurtured through curiosity and collaboration. At Juventus, Marcello Lippi became his tactical mentor. Lippi, with his silver hair and piercing gaze, commanded respect. He believed in discipline, both tactical and personal. He insisted on players maintaining optimal fitness and focusing on team shape. Under his guidance, Zidane learned to appreciate the importance of defensive positioning and to value the hard work of midfield partners. Lippi would often sit with him after training, using small figurines on a board to demonstrate how slight adjustments in positioning could open passing lanes or close opponents' options. He taught him that in football, as in chess, controlling the center of the board, or the pitch, was critical. Lippi also imparted lessons on leadership, reminding him that confidence came from preparation and that leaders must remain calm when others panic. Zidane's national team coach, Aimé Jacquet, was perhaps the mentor who most influenced his psychological approach. Jacquet, a quiet man with a stoic expression, was widely criticized leading up to the 1998 World Cup. Many questioned his tactics and his selections. Jacquet stood firm, shielding his players from criticism and repeating his mantra of unity. He scheduled long walks in the rain during training camps, using the solitude to talk individually with players, asking about their families, their fears, their hopes. He told Zidane that he saw in him not only a playmaker but a leader, and he gave him the freedom to guide the team on the pitch. After the red card against Saudi Arabia, Jacquet's support was unwavering. He visited Zidane's room, sat on a chair by the window where rain streaked down the glass, and said, "This is part of your story. We learn, we move forward." That trust inspired Zidane to deliver his best in the final. Carlo Ancelotti, with his amiable demeanor, later became both a colleague and a mentor. As an assistant coach under Ancelotti at Real Madrid, Zidane observed how kindness and humor could coexist with high standards. Ancelotti often joked with players, telling them to imagine the ball as a pizza. You wouldn't drop a pizza, so don't drop the ball. Yet behind the humor lay detailed analysis and clear instructions. Zidane admired how Ancelotti managed star players with honesty and empathy, how he rotated his squad without creating divisions, and how he absorbed criticism with grace. These lessons influenced Zidane's own coaching style. He learned to mix light-heartedness with seriousness, to communicate clearly, and to view his role as one of service to the player's growth. Beyond coaches, Zidane found mentorship in unexpected places. A librarian in Bordeaux recommended him books on philosophy, introducing him to thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, whose meditations taught him the value of self-discipline and inner peace. A gardener in Turin, hired to tend the club's training grounds, shared stories of patience and cycles of growth, reminding him that slow progress often yields lasting results. An imam at a small mosque in Marseille spoke to him about humility and gratitude, emphasizing that success is a test of character as much as adversity is. These varied influences, each like a raindrop falling into the river of his life, contributed to the depth of his perspective. As a mentor himself, Zidane strives to combine the best elements from those who influenced him. He values structure and freedom, discipline and playfulness, tactics and intuition. He tells young players stories about his mentors, illustrating the importance of listening to those with more experience. He encourages them to seek advice from outside football, from artists, farmers, scholars, to enrich their understanding of the world. He positions himself not as a guru, but as a fellow traveler, open to learning from the younger generation as well. In this way, mentorship becomes a cyclical journey, with knowledge and wisdom flowing like rain through time. The careers of Zidane's sons illustrate both the privileges and challenges of being the children of a legend. Enzo, the eldest, grew up amid the roar of stadiums and the flash of cameras. When he joined Real Madrid's youth academy, some peers assumed he would receive preferential treatment. Enzo, aware of these perceptions, worked diligently to prove his worth. He trained with intensity, spent extra hours studying video footage, and sought guidance from coaches independently of his father. He developed a playing style reminiscent of Zidane's, but infused with his own qualities: quicker acceleration, a preference for incisive runs, and a tendency to shoot from distance. He captained Real Madrid Castilla and made a brief first-team appearance under his father's coaching. Yet aware that his path was different, he moved to Swiss club Lausanne and later to Portuguese side Aves, experiencing different leagues and cultures. He faced injuries and dips in form. In 2024, at 29, he announced his retirement, choosing to explore opportunities in coaching and philanthropy. Zinedine reacted with pride, praising his son's courage to decide based on happiness rather than expectation. Luka's journey took a different turn. At first he also trained with Real Madrid's academy, but as a goalkeeper, his role demanded a contrasting skill set. He possessed agility and reflexes inherited perhaps from his mother's dance background. He experienced the pressure of being compared to legends like Iker Casillas, while also being known as Zidane's son. Loan spells at Racing Santander and Rayo Majadahonda tested him. He conceded goals, made errors, and faced harsh criticism. Those experiences toughened him. In 2020, he signed with Rayo Vallecano and later joined Granada CF, where his performances improved. In 2025, he chose to represent Algeria internationally. The decision honored his grandparents and connected him to his roots. During his first call-up, he listened to the Algerian national anthem with tears in his eyes, feeling the weight of generations on his shoulders. His father, watching on television with rain pattering on the roof, felt his own heart swell with pride. Theo and Elias, still in their early 20s and late teens respectively, navigate their paths with caution. Theo, a tall midfielder, combines physical strength with technical finesse. He moved to Cordoba CF to gain regular first-team minutes, preferring consistent playing time over sitting on benches at bigger clubs. He loves literature and often quotes poetry in interviews, surprising journalists who expect clichés. Elias, the youngest, plays as a left-footed defender. At Real Betis, he learns from experienced teammates while studying civil engineering online, determined to have a career to fall back on. Both brothers acknowledge their father's shadow but appreciate his support. At home, Zinedine helps them review game footage, pointing out positioning and body shape, but he never forces advice. He reminds them that he cannot live their careers for them. They must make their own choices. The brothers share a strong bond. During holidays, they organize mini tournaments in the backyard, inviting cousins and neighborhood kids. They play barefoot, using makeshift goals, just as their father did. Rain rarely cancels these games. If anything, it adds to the fun, making the ground slippery and the ball unpredictable. They invent rules, argue over fouls, and laugh when someone slips. Their father sometimes joins, demonstrating old moves, challenging them to beat him. These moments not only strengthen their relationship, but also remind them of why they love football. Not for fame or money, but for joy and connection. Zidane guides his sons with stories rather than commands. He recounts how he dealt with criticism in Turin, how he handled the temptation of wealth and fame in Madrid, and how he learned to forgive himself after mistakes. He emphasizes the importance of friendships within teams, advising them to build trust with teammates and to appreciate the role of less glamorous players. He warns them about the perils of social media, telling them that attention can be addictive and damaging. He encourages them to engage with their communities, to volunteer, and to use their platform for good. When they face dilemmas, whether to sign with a particular club, how to handle injury recovery, or how to respond to negative headlines, he listens first, then asks questions, guiding them to find their own answers. His sons in turn teach him. They update him on evolving tactics, introduce him to new music, and challenge his views. They discuss climate change, mental health, and gender equality, issues that were less prominent during his playing days. They encourage him to be more active online, to reach younger audiences with messages about resilience and kindness. They also join him in philanthropic work, co-organizing charity matches, designing environmental campaigns, and visiting hospitals. Together, they demonstrate that the Zidane legacy is not a monolith, but a tapestry woven from individual threads, each son adding his own color, pattern, and story. Football has evolved dramatically during Zidane's lifetime. When he first started playing in the 1970s and 1980s, football was less commercialized, less globalized, and less saturated with media. Matches were often played on muddy pitches, broadcast on a few channels, and followed by fans primarily through newspapers and radio. Players could walk in public without being swarmed by cameras. Training methods were less scientific. Diets consisted of whatever the club cafeteria served. Recovery often meant a quick massage and a cold shower. Tactics were evolving, but data analysis and sports psychology were not mainstream. Sponsorships were modest, and transfers rarely reached astronomical sums. By the time Zidane joined Juventus and later Real Madrid, the game was changing. Serie A was awash with television money, allowing clubs to attract international stars. La Liga became a stage for global audiences, broadcast to Asia and America. Marketing departments turned players into brands. Zidane himself became a face for apparel companies, watchmakers, and car manufacturers. He navigated sponsorship obligations carefully, choosing brands that aligned with his values and leaving room for philanthropic commitments. He recognized that fame could amplify messages about charity and inclusion, but he guarded against it consuming his identity. He insisted on maintaining a low profile in his private life, avoiding the celebrity scene that often surrounds high-profile players. Technological advancements revolutionized training and tactics. GPS devices tracked players' movements, heart rate monitors measured exertion, and video analysis software dissected opponents' tendencies. Zidane embraced these tools as a coach, valuing information that could enhance preparation. He also remained wary of reducing players to numbers. He told analysts that data should inform but not dictate. Humans have instincts that statistics cannot capture. He reminded staff that a player's smile, body language, or tone of voice might reveal more than a chart. This balanced approach mirrored his own experience of combining science and art. He valued information but trusted intuition. Commercial pressures intensified as well. Clubs became part of global conglomerates with board members who saw football as entertainment products. The Galactico era at Real Madrid epitomized this shift, with signings driven by both sporting and marketing considerations. Zidane adapted by acknowledging commercial realities while advocating for sporting integrity. He fought for balanced squads and against the sale of key players like Claude Makelele, understanding that glamour alone could not win trophies. He also navigated the media spotlight, attending press conferences, giving interviews in multiple languages, and learning to convey his thoughts succinctly to avoid misinterpretation. He became adept at controlling narratives, emphasizing team unity and respect, refusing to feed gossip. The globalization of football brought both diversity and challenges. Players from every continent now populate European leagues, enriching tactics and cultures. Zidane celebrated this diversity, seeing in it a reflection of his own multicultural identity. He encouraged clubs to scout beyond traditional regions, to invest in youth academies in Africa, Asia, and the Americas. He also witnessed the dark side: exploitation of young talents, corruption in transfers, and fans becoming consumers rather than participants. He spoke against human trafficking, disguised as football recruitment, and supported initiatives that provided education and protection for young players moving abroad. He urged governing bodies to enforce regulations that ensure clubs treat players ethically, honor contracts, and invest in communities. Digital media transformed fan engagement. Highlights, memes, and rumors spread instantly across platforms. Zidane observed how players' mistakes could be amplified and how private moments could become public property. As a coach, he advised players on media literacy, telling them to use social media mindfully, to avoid reading comments that could harm self-esteem, and to remember that online narratives can be detached from reality. He saw potential for positive impact. Players could communicate directly with fans, share charity initiatives, and humanize themselves. He also saw the risk of addiction to validation through likes and follows, urging players to find self-worth internally. Finally, the pace of the game accelerated. Athletes became fitter, pitches became firmer and faster, and referees began using video technology to review decisions. Zidane adapted by adjusting training intensity, incorporating sports science, and promoting squad depth to cope with congested calendars. As a player, he might have enjoyed the slower build-ups of 1990s Serie A, but as a coach, he appreciated the excitement of high-pressing football. He studied new tactical trends like gegenpressing and false nines, integrating elements into his own teams. He maintained his belief that while systems evolve, the fundamentals remain: control the ball, create space, support teammates, and respect the game's spirit. Through these transformations, Zidane remained grounded. He welcomed change but defended tradition. He understood that football is both a business and a cultural institution, but he kept human connection at its core. He adapted without losing his essence, embracing analytics without discarding intuition, engaging with media without becoming a product, and coaching modern tactics without forgetting the joy of a simple pass in the rain. His perspective on the evolving game invites fans and practitioners to approach change thoughtfully, preserving what is beautiful while embracing what is useful. As storm clouds gather and dissipate over stadiums across the world, his story reminds us that amidst constant flux, the values of love, respect, and community endure. After stepping back from high-profile coaching positions, Zidane invested more of his time and energy in grassroots football development. He recognized that while elite clubs often receive attention and resources, millions of children around the world lack access to proper facilities, coaching, and encouragement. With his foundation and through partnerships with organizations like the UNDP and ELA, he spearheaded initiatives to build pitches, provide equipment, and train local coaches in underprivileged areas. He traveled to villages in the Atlas Mountains of Morocco, to dusty fields in rural Algeria, to cramped neighborhoods in Marseille, and to refugee camps in Turkey. In each place, he saw children whose eyes lit up at the sight of a football, whose laughter echoed even under grey skies, and whose dreams flickered like candles against adversity. During these visits, he dressed plainly, often wearing tracksuits and sneakers, blending in with coaches and parents. He gathered children in circles, asked them about their favorite players, and told them stories about his own childhood. He taught them simple drills, how to control the ball with different parts of their feet, how to pass and move, how to use their bodies to protect the ball from opponents. He encouraged them to play barefoot to develop a natural feel for the ball, reminiscent of his own experiences on La Castellane's asphalt. He stressed that enjoyment should precede competition. When it rained, which it often did in these mountainous and coastal regions, he continued the sessions, showing that football does not stop for weather and that challenges can be embraced. Children slid in the mud, splashed in puddles, and laughed hysterically when the ball stuck in the dirt. Zidane's eyes sparkled as he joined them, drenched but invigorated, his presence a testament that greatness grows in humble, wet places. He also organized clinics for local coaches, emphasizing that sustainable development relies on training educators. In workshops held under tents or in community centers, he explained the basics of youth coaching, structuring sessions, providing positive feedback, ensuring safety, and fostering inclusion. He shared insights about balancing drills and free play, about nurturing not just skills but confidence and teamwork. He spoke about recognizing talent while not neglecting late bloomers. He told coaches that their role extended beyond football, that they were mentors, role models, and sometimes parental figures. He encouraged them to communicate with parents, to involve them in their children's sports journeys, and to prioritize education. He emphasized that football should never be a reason to neglect school, but a complement to learning. In partnership with Real Madrid's foundation, he helped establish academies in various countries. These academies offered scholarships to children from low-income families, provided nutritious meals, and integrated life skills workshops into training programs. Students learned about health, hygiene, conflict resolution, and environmental conservation alongside dribbling and shooting. Zidane visited these academies regularly, checking on progress, meeting with directors, and participating in discussions about curriculum. He insisted that the academies be more than talent pipelines for professional clubs. They should be safe havens where children felt valued and seen. He requested that psychologists be available to address trauma and stress, acknowledging that many participants came from war-torn or impoverished backgrounds. In France, he became involved in programs that aimed to open access to football for girls and young women. Having grown up with sisters who loved sport but lacked opportunities, he understood gender disparities. He appeared at tournaments organized by Femina Foot, delivered speeches about equality, and met with female players to listen to their experiences. He advocated for more female coaches in youth setups and for clubs to invest in women's teams. He wrote letters to football authorities urging them to provide equal facilities and media coverage. His involvement lent weight to campaigns that sought to change attitudes and budgets. Young girls who once thought football was not for them found encouragement in his support. They saw a global icon championing their right to play. His grassroots work was not limited to football skills. He integrated lessons on climate stewardship, inspired by the environmental awareness his sons had instilled in him. At youth camps, he organized tree planting days where players and coaches worked together to restore local parks. He collaborated with environmental NGOs to teach children about recycling and renewable energy. He explained that just as players had to maintain their bodies, communities had to maintain their environment. Rain, a recurring symbol in his life, served as a teaching tool. He taught children to collect rainwater for gardens, to appreciate how water nourishes crops, and to see rain not as a nuisance but as a gift. He used metaphors of water cycles to explain resilience, that after a drought rain comes, and after hardships hope returns. Through these initiatives, he forged deeper connections with communities. Parents invited him into their homes for tea and couscous. Children drew portraits of him on scrap paper, and elders presented him with handcrafted textiles. He stayed longer than scheduled, listening to stories of struggle and resilience, speaking about the importance of community solidarity. He promised to return, and often did, maintaining relationships rather than treating visits as one-off appearances. He coordinated with local leaders to ensure projects continued after he left, empowering them rather than imposing external solutions. He reported back to donors transparently, showing how funds were used and what challenges remained. Stories of these grassroots moments spread through word of mouth rather than headlines. A girl in rural Spain recalled how he knelt in the mud to tie her shoelaces when they came undone, then told her to keep running. A boy in Algeria remembered how he was too shy to speak to Zidane, but Zidane noticed him standing alone and invited him to join his group, telling him that every team needs quiet thinkers. A coach in Morocco recounted how Zidane stayed past sunset to sign every jersey, even when rain turned into a downpour and his clothes clung to his skin. These anecdotes, passed around like treasured secrets, contributed to a portrait of a man for whom service is not an obligation but a joy. As he engages with grassroots football, Zidane often reflects on his own beginnings. He sees his younger self in the faces of children playing barefoot on dirt, in the intense concentration of a girl perfecting her first touch, in the nervous excitement of a boy selected for his first tournament. He tells them that football gave him a platform, but that their worth is not determined by wins or losses. He tells them that rain will fall, sometimes heavily, sometimes lightly, but each drop offers nourishment for growth. He teaches them to love the game for its ability to unite, to heal, and to teach. He reminds them that whether they become professionals, coaches, doctors, or artists, the lessons learned on the pitch, teamwork, perseverance, respect, will serve them throughout life.